Good evening, fellow heretics, and welcome to the newest episode of Nerds+Heresy. I'm your host, Captain Dadpool, and our guest of honor today. Well, we have a guest co-host, NattieGnat. Crimson Barrel is still in the middle of moving, so he is not available at this week either. But Nat agreed to come on and help me out with that, which I'm super appreciative of that, Nat. And our guest of honor tonight is the one and only Archaeowolf, aka Morgan.
Yep.
I keep getting Morgan and Mason mixed up in my head. It's very difficult.
Also known as the CEO of Archaeology on TikTok, apparently.
What?
Okay. I did not quote that. I did not quote that. I did a podcast called A Life in Ruins, and I follow one of the guys who does that show on TikTok, and they sent me the whole list of questions, and in there, it was essentially the interview and outline form, and it says, "So you're the CEO of Archaeology TikTok?" I'm like, whoever the hell wrote that? No, but I guess I have a lot of followers because I'm loud. I think that's what it is.
I think I have a lot of followers because of my hair. So
it's pretty fantastic hair.
I think
if it was just because you were loud, I would have had a lot more followers than I have.
That's fair. So Morgan, why don't you take a few minutes to let anyone and who's watching know who exactly you are if they've been living under a rock?
Well,
yeah,
lots of people do live under rocks. Well, my name is Morgan. I go by Archaeowolf on TikTok and on Instagram. I'm an archaeologist. I work for the Department of the Interior here in Western Montana. I do what's called CRM archaeology, cultural resource management. There's on an agency level, there's like private sector, academic, and then what I do. Yeah, so I do that for the feds, and one of the things I part of my job description on top of doing archaeological survey and excavations is to monitor already recorded sites and maintaining site integrity within the district that I work. So there's what was it? Oh, we established 52,000 sites in Montana with a number, of which, I don't know, 15,000 have actually been looked at more than, oh, hey, there's some stuff on the ground, give it a number and keep walking. So the stuff that I work with is predominantly Western Montana, from just outside of Butte to Idaho, and between Flathead Lake and Phillipsburg. So nice little chunk of the state, pretty vertical in some places, but still it's pretty cool. I'm currently finishing my MA in cultural resource management. I have all the coursework done, just writing the paper. Actually about aviation archaeology, hence the list of the crash things behind me on the wall there that if I really wanted to go walking, I could go find them because they're local. But yeah, other than that, I've got a 6-year-old daughter, 5 horses, or no, not 5 horses, 5 dogs, 6 cats, 3 horses, 7 chickens. I don't like
the third horse.
Did I say 3? I meant 2.
Yeah. I was going to say.
There might be 3 out there. I don't even know anymore.
One has
you only have 2 horses that you know of.
Jesus. Well, if another horse appears on this property, there's an unspoken rule or an unspoken agreement is that if another horse appears on this property, I get another set of wheels.
Oh.
Yes. Yes. And I happen to know where there's no Land Cruiser, which is calling my name. Either a Land Cruiser or another step-side Dodge pickup, because I have a love affair with those too. So, but yeah, I started doing TikTok, last March, I guess, when everybody decided to lock themselves away and do the same thing. And it turned into this beast that I really don't know what the hell's going on. I just kind of keep winging it, and I end up answering questions that are very simple. And then I seem to get drug into the, did you know that the aliens from Atlantis built the pyramids to fight the alien or to fight the lizard arachnid people that live in Antarctica?
So did not know that.
Yeah, right. Neither did I. Yeah. So yeah. I go by Moros on TikTok because it's I rage against the Ancient Aliens thing. My favorite TV show is Stargate. And one of the characters who actually becomes Merlin in the series is named Moros. And I was typing away one day and I was like, that's actually pretty cool. So it became a nom de plume and I just went with it. So
it's very similar to your actual name.
Yeah. It's just similar enough to not get confusing. And it's different enough to where you really have to look if you really want to find me. So it is the internet, and I know that. Yeah, but other than that, it's just going along. This will be the 4th podcast I've done in the last 3 months, so I'm still new to this platform, but it's interesting. It's fun. I've been enjoying it. So yeah, thanks for having me on here.
Yeah,
I should have done my homework.
Eventually, you'll start your own podcast.
Time? What? More time? Does it require time?
That's what happened to me. Is like I was suddenly invited on a bunch of podcasts, and then everyone's like, "You should start your own," and then I did, and here we are.
Here we are.
But thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and you too, Nat.
Oh, of course.
As I mentioned in my promo video, like both of you are just walking encyclopedias of all things science, archaeology, geology, history. Like I know a lot about the Bible and New Testament history. That's about it. That's about it. Like I excel in that area. Like anything else, you're not going to get much out of me. But you guys, like, seems like you can answer pretty much or give like information about any topic.
So I don't know anything about the Bible or First Testament history or anything like that. So when we do have a conversation about that, it'll be like,
yeah, I'm the same way. Whenever it gets into like the actual religious texts, I'm just like, I'm just sitting here.
Yeah. Somebody said that there was a book of Mark, and I'm like, really?
Is there?
My uncle's name is Mark.
Yeah, I'm the first and probably only really credible source. Anyway, so the topic that, or the title of the show is just what archaeology has to say about the Bible. And we don't have to, stick on that too long. It's just sort of like a place to start. Last night during our after show, because we had a little debate between Nat and Eddie, and Eddie and Brad.
Eddie and Brad.
And Brad gave a whole bunch of like supposed archaeological evidence for the Exodus, and I saw Nat just in her window,
I melted.
just like
I melted. I was like 7 things
internally. It was so like you could see it on her face. So like she just wanted to rage quit so bad.
He was quoting the Ron Wyatt stuff, wasn't he?
Oh, I'm already seeing people on our chat talking about Ron Wyatt, so I'm trying not to bring that up. But you just did, so
yeah. No, he knows better. He knows better than to bring up Ron Wyatt. It just
but
he already said, but it's something else.
He was talking about that 300-year gap that I mentioned earlier.
Right.
Yeah, and how because we can't prove what happened during those 300 years, then technically the Israelites could have been enslaved without any proof. But knowing that there's so many people there's going to be scraps. You're always going to find something that's there. And I mean, even if we haven't found it yet, doesn't mean we aren't going to. But it's really unusual if you haven't found at least one thing that suggests.
You point out that there's a 300-year gap in the history of what we know. Written? Is that a written gap?
Apparently, yeah. It's supposed to be.
There's lots of stuff today that doesn't get written down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no big mystery behind it. The archaeological record doesn't stop for 300 years. There's stuff that gets erased because of the social construct of the time and the cultural changes. That one pharaoh got killed in battle. The person who didn't like him took over and X'd him out of history, out of all the books.
Tried to, but we do know.
Or tried to. Yeah. There are numerous rulers on a global scale that's happened to. Where just things happen. natural disasters. Library of Alexandria, it could be considered almost one of those in respect to how devastating that was.
I don't know about natural, but it was a disaster.
Well, humans are natural-ish, you know. But the thing is that something like with you can have a 300-year gap in writing. You won't have a 300-year gap in the material culture. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people kind of breeze by. They think that one equals the other. And when in reality, you know, most of human history isn't written down. You know, north of, I mean, let's just put the pin in at 15,000 years when humanity civilization starts with someone deciding they're going to grow a row of tomatoes. Prior to that, there's really no writing system or any sort of, you know, other than cave drawings, there's no representation of humanity other than the artifacts and material culture and remains left behind. You know, it's the same kind of history we can get from dinosaurs or, you know, any other sort of record like the fossil record that, yeah, there's nothing actually written down, but after a certain point there is, and the constant is the material stuff. And there's whole facets of archaeology. If you can think of a topic, there is an archaeology of it. It may be minuscule and only one person's ever done any sort of work with it, but you know, aviation archaeology. Aviation has only been around for 100 and change years. Archaeology of magic, archaeology of drinking, of alcohol, you know, stuff like that. There is an archaeology of slavery. Slancha. You know, the archaeology of slavery, at least in the United States, is relatively easy to follow because there are written records that go with it. But going all the way back through history, you can see the identity of the people within the typology of their artifacts and the typology of how they interact with their environment. There's a site that I would love to go see. My advisor during my undergrad worked on it, and it was a saloon in Virginia City, Nevada, and it was owned by a man named John Brown, who in 1877 had the nicest saloon outside of the giant Victorian Theater. Served the best cuts of meat. You could tell that from the bones in the trash pit. The best kinds of alcohol because of the bottles and the glasses. The best kind of he had the finest cutlery, actual porcelain dishes. The building had compressed gas lighting in 1877, which is pretty impressive. And that's all well and good. He's in the richest part of town. What's very interesting and unique about that situation, though, is that John Brown was an emancipated slave. So he's out west, African-American, ex-slave, probably a bare minimum of an education. Yet he sets up this whole thing, which makes him a very large part of that town's history. Well, when the structure burned down in like 1905 and got buried underneath the parking lot, it got forgotten. And then it was a field school in the early to late 90s. And one of the things that was discovered in this structure underneath what had been the floor, at all 4 points of the building, there was some sort of talisman. There was some sort of symbolic object prepared in a certain way. And it all points to Haitian voodoo. It all has similarities to Haitian voodoo. And guess where John Brown was a slave? Louisiana, which is right across the pond from Haiti. Yep. So he brought with him this aspect of his culture, his belief system. And no, he didn't have the proper chickens. No, he didn't have the proper seashells or whatever little bits of material culture that would have been used in some sort of rite. Yet he still recreated those things with what he had available. And he worked whatever superstition, good luck charm on his business, which served him quite well if you look at the history of it.
Absolutely.
People do that. You can be taken away from everything you know, but all of your cultural identity is still in your head. And you can recreate that.
So with that concept that people recreate what they can with what they have, let's talk about how certain things can be found in archaeological sites that indicate practices long past. I think one of my favorites, and you and I have discussed this on lives before, is the fact that there are anti-witch, anti-fae items that you can find in day-to-day, like even modern-day houses. Yep. And one of my favorites is the one that we predominantly
everybody knows.
It's going to be on barns, and it's at the front of a house you'll have a horseshoe, or on the barn you'll have this quilted pattern. Those are supposed to prevent witches, and that is something that is extremely popular in modern day US. It's also something that we see in a lot of historical sites. So are there any others that you'd like to bring forward that might pique everyone's interest?
Well, there's the tradition of tying a red ribbon around the tails of your cattle, keeps the witches from spoiling milk. And if one thing I want to point out, these are practices in Christianized Europe, where 2 or 3 generations prior, you didn't scare the witches away. You left the bowl of milk out for the little brownie man who helps with the harvest, the little hairy gnome fellow, and just cultural influences and practices of Christianity change the character in that particular mythos from good to bad. So like the red ribbon keeps witches away. There was actually a artifact found somewhere in the Midlands in England where an old barn had been, like 14th century stone barn. And it was in a, I guess it was in some sort of container, and it had shrunken down, was almost completely gone. But it was a mummified calf's heart with like 24 very fine metal needles through it at a time where very fine metal needles are worth more than gold. And it was wrapped in what possibly could have been a red dyed cloth or something. And essentially it was this, you made a sacrifice of one to protect the herd. And it was some sort of talisman to, in theory, I believe it was directly to keep witches away. But, there was the concept of iron, bridges that go over fresh water have lots of iron on either end of them because it's the only point where the fae can follow you. And in some cases, the only way to get away from some of these creatures, like the necklave, is to cross running fresh water. So, I mean, all sorts of little strange superstitions that fall into a cultural practice that, when you look at it, is very identifiable to where they come from. There was a house actually here in Missoula that when it was torn down, it had things buried under the floor, a superstition that you see in Ireland. And guess who owned the house? An Irishman who came over during the famine when he was 12. And he managed to make his riches logging or whatever, and he built a nice house here in town. And when the house was being built, these things got put underneath the floor. Superstition that just becomes almost second nature. You don't even think about it.
I wonder, this may be a stretch, but I wonder if the red ribbon has any ties to smearing the blood of the lamb over your door in the book of Exodus to ward off the angel of death.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
When you look at a lot of religions, especially in Europe and Asia and Africa, where everybody can walk and everybody can talk relatively easily, you see a trade back and forth. The easiest one to see, obviously, is the Greeks and the Romans have the same gods. They just have a different name. The Nordic gods and Celtic gods are very similar. They don't have the same name. They might have some of the same. They might have different jobs, but for the most part, there's a correlation between the two. And when you look, I mean, it's easier to say this because Islam came out of Christianity. You still have the main character is just a rewording of the same main belief. So
fan fiction.
And you can yeah. But it's interesting because things will be adopted if they appear to work. There's a very interesting little bit of history about the Mongols. The Mongols would let you keep your religion, fine, whatever. But Genghis Khan and later Kublai Khan and his descendants were recorded as to have kept holy men of all religions in their court. And it was one of those kind of, I'm going to have some insurance. I better make sure, just in case I'm wrong, I better take a little bit of initiative to appease the one that is right.
You know, I've read a lot about Genghis Khan, and he's an interesting dude. And like, I've
rather
heard
intelligent, surprisingly so.
And he I read one story, not to get off track, but this is great. I read one story where during one of the battles, someone shot an arrow that killed his horse.
Yep.
And when he captured everybody, and they were like, probably familiar. And he was like, "Who killed my horse?" And then the guy stepped out, and everyone expecting him to execute him. He was like, "You're going to be the general of my army, or you can die."
I believe that was.
Or you can die. Your shot was great.
I believe it was Subutai. His general Subutai is the one who did that.
Yeah.
And it was like one of his favorite horses too, so that was a thing.
Yeah.
But in the heat of battle, this guy smoked his horse, and a horse isn't that big. You're only that far away from probably any spot where that arrow hit. That's impressive.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, he didn't like torture people so much. Like he executed like quick, but he recruited like the best of the best that he could find. Yep. Not so much.
There were moments. When he did torture, it was pretty terrifying. Yeah. But he didn't normally do it. It was common practice if he wanted information or if he was trying to get an example.
But not to like prolong the death. Like he never did it to prolong their death like the Romans did.
No? When Subutai went into Kevin Roos, that was there's an account from
than I do.
There's an account from the Secret History of the Mongols, and it's also recorded through a monastery, I believe, in Kiev, where and this is kind of what's ridiculous about it. The invaders, this invading army, the apocalypse is coming, was really just 15,000 guys on horseback, a scouting expedition. When they kicked the absolute snot out of the Kievan Rus princes and captured 2/3 of the princes, they put them in boxes and ritually suffocate them.
Good luck finding them.
Yeah, right. But
1,000 years later, look, there they are.
Yeah, right. Hey, we lost them. Well, we found them again. But what they did was they took the prisoners and they bound them side by side and made them lay down, row upon row upon row, like 5 courses high, and then they built a wooden platform and set on top of the log pile of humans that are still alive, and then set up their dinner and had a shindig on that big platform with like 40 something of the best horsemen.
That doesn't sound very comfortable.
No.
I think.
Did they give him a pillow or anything at least?
No. What was
it? The guy underneath you, I guess.
Yeah, right. I believe there was another example of this when he took a few of the leaders of a tribe. I don't actually know which ones, but he put rugs over them, and if they were to move, he'd step on them specifically until like it was like a meeting tent, and like they were like crushed on the ground, so they get trampled over as people walked. And if someone tripped over them, then that person would get stabbed like through the rug, like you're in the way. Gosh darn it. Oh, so sad.
Yeah.
You were this close.
Yeah, torture's not a new thing across the scape of humanity.
Christians made torture interesting.
They certainly did.
Yeah, there's a lot of it.
But then, of course,
the devices they come up with.
The Iron Maiden, that's still kind of creepy to me.
I still think the boats is the best.
That's true.
Which one?
The boats. Are you familiar with the boats?
Oh, boats. Is that the one? Is that the one where they slather your body in like honey and then? Yeah,
that's
an Assyrian torture.
Yeah, but that's not. Exactly. That's not Christian. They took it. Damn colonizers.
No, that.
What was the one where you would sit on like a triangular log and they would attach weights to your feet and it would slowly like cut you in half?
I know this one. Yes.
I can't remember the name of it. It's along the lines of Vlad the Impaler's Fun Time.
Yeah, I was thinking it was like Rus.
But that
some way or another.
That looks like it would suck a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It depends on where they put the log too, because depending on how long they want you to live, sometimes they would have you lay down and it would be behind you on your back, and then other times they'd have you sit on it. So it just kind of depends as to how pissed
all these
off
things
they
that
are.
we're suddenly not allowed to do to child molesters and
right.
And there was the pair of anguish, which was inserted either rectally or vaginally or orally. Depending on how bad you fucked up would determine how many times they turned. Anyway.
Yeah. Hey,
welcome
sunny
to
times,
Archaeology
sunny
of
days.
Torture.
You know what? There probably is one.
There is.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's archaeology of combat, archaeology of specific time period combat. You know, I mean,
there's got to be somebody that is really interested in torture. Probably someone fucked up, but that's okay. Most of us are. I mean,
torture specific historians.
I was going to say, in order to go into archaeology, you got to be fucked up in some way.
Nat, are you saying there's a problem with me?
I'm saying there's a problem with me.
I know what my problem is.
Oh yeah?
What is your problem?
What's your issue?
I drink.
No, that's the solution.
That is the solution.
Right.
I don't know.
That's how you cope with the burden of all this knowledge.
I liked cutting things open when they were dead. That's what got me into. I wanted to be a mortician initially, and then I found out I had to say what.
Most of the girls I dated in high school like that.
I think I shared this story with you, Nat, already. When we did our dissecting a frog project, it was supposed to take 2 days, and you had a partner. My partner was vegan, and she had to do the computer one. And I did it in 1 day. I completed the whole thing. It was like, cut it out, remove the brain, remove the heart, remove this. I did that bitch in 1 day by myself. And everybody else,
lucky.
I butchered that frog.
Oh, you were in a small school. You didn't get frogs, did you? Did you?
Oh, not only was I in a small school, I was in the loser class.
Oh.
There were 6 of us. Mr. Homer was retiring. He did not give 2 shits.
Oh.
Mr. Kuchel's class got fetal pigs and cow's eyes and froggies.
Oh.
And we got giant grasshoppers.
Grasshoppers?
Giant. Yeah. I mean 5-6 inch long giant grasshoppers.
Well, I mean, when you go to Louisiana at the right time of year, you can find them. They're pretty freaking.
I imagine they're great fish bait, but
especially when their legs still kick. Oh yeah.
Oh, I bet.
Catfish just love it.
But we got no instruction. It was a do this, blah, and Mr. Homer left to go sit in the teacher's lounge and drink coffee and complain and regret everything in his life, I guess. And when we were done, he comes back in, goes, throw them away, and then leaves again. And what did I do?
Stuck it in your pocket.
Nope. No, I'm not that gross. I did take all of the heads and pike them on shish kebab sticks and stuck them in the little foam flower block on his desk.
So you just did.
So I had little piked heads. You know how long those stayed up there?
Oh, how long before he even noticed them?
I don't believe he ever did.
Wow.
No, he
probably the janitor did one night and just threw it away.
I don't know. I don't recall ever seeing them not there. So maybe he got a kick out of it and just left them, or maybe he didn't even notice. I have no idea.
Our like AP science course, I forget what exactly, but they got cats, like cats that got put down.
Oh my!
They came
on
in frozen vacuum sealed bags, and they got to dissect cats. And I was a little jealous. I'm not gonna lie.
Boy, yeah. I worked at a vet clinic. The stuff that they put animals down with.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to cremate them.
Yeah.
Because if it gets in, if you bury the body, it contaminates everything for a long time. Like yeah. Like you're not supposed to come in contact with the fluids.
Yeah.
From what I was told. So I don't know how you guys are dissecting cats that were put down unless they were put down.
But if it was put down with a bullet,
we're cheerful.
I had to put down a few cats recently, but no, we same issue.
Hit the like button, or Denny's will serve grasshopper head skewers at your next visit. Hey, you know what? Cool.
I'm up for it.
I say dip them in hickory barbecue sauce.
I was gonna say, I mean, it's not the first time I would have eaten insects.
Just you remember the suckers?
Yeah.
Do you remember those suckers with the scorpions in them or the crickets?
They still exist. What do you mean? Remember them?
I remember when they were like everywhere. Like you were a cool kid if you ate one.
Yeah.
You can still
get like buffalo flavored mealworms that are like not stir fried, but like fried up, and you get them in those little boxes. Not bad.
I bet you they come from the same factory that gives you the bag of mealworms for your chickens.
I bet they do.
Who knows?
Chickens get fed better than half of us anyway, so.
Cannibalistic,
right.
Psychotic little creatures.
Going on side rants here.
Yeah. By the way.
So I did a lot of research on going back to our original topic of archaeology in the Bible. I did a lot of research on the Impure Papyrus, which that has the 10 plagues in it that parallel the 10 plagues of Exodus. But the story itself is an invasion, not an Exodus. And from what I understand, there was archaeological evidence of what was recorded in the Impure Papyrus, but not in Exodus. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
I have heard what you're talking about. I can't remember when the last time I looked at it was.
Yeah.
So there is archaeological evidence of invasion all the time, everywhere. And the invasions are usually really well recorded. Either if your civilization is invaded and you kick them out, you record that. That's propaganda. That's that's something you keep. That becomes legend. Yeah. If you are in the invader and you win, you record that both in your home country and where you invade. And you, of course, put the spin on it of you have done a good thing. You have rescued them. And then if it's a near run thing or it comes to a draw, both sides record it and go, well, we reached the point where there was no longer a reason to keep going. I.e., we didn't want to lose any more dudes. But when people point out like Israelites, Israel's in the Middle East. Everywhere in the Middle East has been under some sort of rule or some sort of nation state of sorts that did not identify themselves as Israelites or Palestinians or anything like that. Modern names really don't apply that much. Sometimes they do, but you can say that the Scots have invaded. You're describing people who come from a certain place, not necessarily of that religion, of that caste, of that particular religious belief or cultural setup. You're just referring to them by where they're from. And again, in that area, all of the technology is relatively easy to come by. It's nobody has a sudden surprise when it comes to a weapon or some sort of technology for farming or anything like that, because it's all so close. It all develops kind of the same time, countering each other. When you see something like an isolated population, say the Americas, where everybody gets to kind of the same point and then nothing changes because there's no other influence from anywhere else to give anybody an upper edge or the upper hand, you would see technology similar in Babylon as you would in Lydia, as you would in Egypt, all around. So it's possible when looking at that papyrus, they're recording details that are similar too, but they're not. I mean, I see where people would go and say this is absolute proof because that's what they're looking for. There's not a consideration there, I think, for the fact that people talk to people and technology is shared and goes, technology and stuff like that doesn't care about your religion. It's not
right.
Specific.
What do you all say to, and this is for both of you, all these like, I'm having trouble wording this. When like there's archaeological evidence for Sodom and Gomorrah, not like that, but there's like sulfur at like an area that was destroyed, obviously, or like the top of Mount Sinai is scorched, or like the evidence for a global flood. What do y'all have to say about things like that? Which I understand is, and what Christians don't understand is that these things are discovered and then legends are made out of them. Like, why is there a city that is clearly burned to nothing? Well, then they create all these legends about it, and now it's in the Bible, and we have guys like Ken Ham talking about how
I knew who you are, but what am I? Yeah, didn't his boat get damaged by the rain, and now the insurance company won't?
Yeah. Oh,
funny.
So, it's kind of like who the owner of Hobby Lobby like paid a bunch of money for a bunch of fraudulent manuscripts.
Only after he already stole like real ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But what's really funny is who he paid that money to?
I don't actually.
The CIA does. No, they actually.
They knows.
So some of that money was tagged.
Oh.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, it wound up in the hands of the Russians.
What? No.
Is this classified information? Should I be like looking over my shoulder at this point?
No, this is on the BBC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. They actually established that that a bunch of these tagged dollars that Captain Hobby Lobby, because he was under investigation for actually illegal artifact trafficking, black market stuff.
Yeah. I heard that.
A bunch of the money got tagged in part of this investigation, and it wound up in Russia. Well, the people that the people in Russia who had the money just so happened to, I guess they were in the army, and they knew of all these old ex-Soviet warehouses that nobody would actually do inventory on.
That does make
all went
easy pickings
to ISIS so they could buy toys from the Russians. So Hobby Lobby, good Christians,
funded Islamic terrorism.
One fundamentalist group funds another.
That's how it works. Though.
It's like a circle. It's like a freaky circle, but it's a circle.
Everything is like a circle.
We are a parody of ourselves.
There was actually a really interesting thing. This is a car thing. There was a guy in Texas, kind of feel bad for him, who pretty much had to move out of Texas, change his name, all this stuff, because he traded his truck in. He's a plumber. and he traded his big Ford 1-ton pickup in for a new one because, well, his truck was old and wore out. And it had his business name on the side and his name and his phone number in big white letters on the side of the truck. And he was like, and I guess he went to the dealership and he was like, I want to trade my truck in. And then he offered to scratch or remove the signage. And the dealership said, oh, no, don't worry about it. Because, and I worked for one of these insurance outfits where we had to do this to marked vehicles. The auction yard was supposed to de-identify it. They were supposed to take all the stickers off. And the truck sold at the dealership took it to a trade-in auction and sold it for some dirt cheap price because they were just barely trying to get their money back on it. And the long and the short of it is that this guy gets approached by Homeland Security. This guy gets approached by all the law enforcement agencies, and then he starts getting death threats at his house. And people are, his business gets blacklisted, all this stuff. And it turns out that there is a really great picture of this truck with his phone number and name on it with some Soviet anti-aircraft gun strapped to the back of it because it got bought and driven across the border into Mexico and put on a boat for Africa.
No.
Driven across Africa, put on a boat or something, delivered to Syria and into the hands of ISIS because they had the means to buy these vehicles that are untraceable. It's a derelict old Ford with 500,000 miles on it. Nobody's going to pay attention to that. All they need, though, is a set of wheels, and it was cheap. And nobody gave it a second look crossing the borders because it's a work truck until it gets there and they strap a gun on it and then start shooting at American troops in northern Iraq. It's like
poor guy. I feel
and this
bad.
guy, and they're all like, people were getting on him about you're a traitor, and he's literally like, I traded the truck in. But it's all.
I think I remember this. Like, did this make the news in the States? Like, I remember like pictures of this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The truck was black. It was black or dark blue or something. It was because the picture from the desert wasn't very good, but it was an old plumbing truck. And they put a gun on it.
I do remember this. This was a while ago.
They
mounted a Dishka. It's called,
something like that.
On the back of it.
Yeah, like it was a twin barrel gun, right?
Yeah, Dishka, I think it's called.
Something like a Bofors. I'm not that familiar with modern weaponry.
I'm not either.
I'm out of my reach here. I don't know.
A Bofors gun.
It was something that went bang, bang, boom, boom, and things went.
Yeah.
Big scary thing.
So the big scary gun things.
But yeah, 1,000 years from now, that truck with identifying marks on it would be traced to where do they build Ford trucks now? U.S.
Wait, no.
Ohio?
Yeah.
Something like that would be traced to, or Kentucky or whatever. No, Kentucky is the Corvette museum, the Corvette factory. But they would be able to trace it back to a place of origin. And that would, if you don't know what the history is, would create quite the legend behind it, or quite the postulation behind it.
So future archaeologists will be like, wow, the U.S. funded terrorism.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Or well, not that we don't already, but
they could reveal a truth, or they could come up with really, really interesting theories. I can't think of any at the top of my mind.
Is why provenance is so damn important. That's one of the things that like when you see coming back to the archaeology and the Bible things, people pointing out all of the things that there's proof of, yet you can't answer the simplest questions about it. Where is this? Where did you find this? Oh, here. No. Where did you find it? Show me how deep. Show me what it was discovered with. Oh, they can't do it. Yet there's, secular artifacts that go all the way back to mankind figuring out how to grow some grain. And it's in an unbroken column. when you look at the stratigraphy of the ground. And all of that data, that where it is, helps us learn or helps us identify things and figure out where in the timeline things fit. Because someone can pick up an arrowhead and bring it to me 6 months after they pick it up. It's happened. And they can say, what can you tell me about this? What is it worth? I tell them it's worth absolutely goddamn nothing now because they picked it up and the provenience is gone. But what I can do is I can take that arrowhead and I can compare it to an identification book that I have on my desk in front of me. And I can compare it to the same style and the same stone type to an arrowhead that was found along the Columbia River in 1961. Its depth suggested it was 2,000 years old. It was found, with A, B, and C other artifacts. And they found more of them with all of this same data. So I have my one artifact, which has no data whatsoever, but I can identify that and compare it to other things that do have the data. Here's the problem with it, though. I know a guy who can make a better arrowhead than the ones you find in the field. Mm-hmm. He can make them so flawless that you can't tell. And until you take microprotein samples off of them and test them to make sure they actually haven't killed an animal, you won't be able to tell if they're fake or real. Mm-hmm. So that's when I say provenience is needed for that artifact, which is right where it was, how deep. Then we compare it to all the stuff that Nat knows about geology. And she can say I can area.
Trace the origins of where they found the rock. I can trace the locations and what kind of trade routes it went through. I can trace how it was initially carved versus how it is now, if there was any damage that was done to it prior. I can tell if a large spearhead was suddenly carved down multiple times because it was broken, because of the different ways that they would strike the material and cause it to fracture. So that is, so that's where I come in with CRM. So,
but if you also, if you know the deposition of an area, how much soil is deposited on that site based on
how often,
river
how
flow,
thick,
you can age that and go all the way back and get a picture of that.
And I can tell when a site is from two different ages, which, you can do that with artifacts too, but if you only find flakes, depending on the deposition of the soil, you can determine whether or not there was two different cultures there, if it's a continuous culture or if there was just somebody wandered by and then there was another solid campsite underneath it. It all just kind of depends.
Biblical artifacts don't have that.
Yeah.
Even if they're very much described in the Bible at Jerusalem, there's quite a few. There's exact descriptions of all the major structures. Correct. Jerusalem is quite well illustrated.
Yeah, they have exact measurements and everything.
Yeah, of which they've found some. The Wailing Wall is one. Actually, wait, the Wailing Wall is a Roman addition to the original wall that was done by Cyrus the Great.
Is it? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So when the Medes and the Persians take over and kick the crap out of the Assyrians, Cyrus the Great is the leader. And one of the things he did, and this was kind of a political move as well as let's get the population to rise up against Ashurbanipal. Ashurbanipal was the son of Nabonidus II. Nabonidus II, ironically enough, is considered the first archaeologist.
I actually don't think I knew that.
Yep.
Really?
In fact, according to records that have been found by archaeologists, he fucked off for the last 10 years of his reign to go dig up ancient things and hang out at an oasis and drink whatever particular wine they were drinking back then.
That sounds amazing.
Right? I know.
Can I go fuck off for 10 years and no one knows?
Right. where was I going with that? But Cyrus actually returned people, repatriated these people that had been taken from where they were as political hostages, cultural hostages, etc., etc. And one of the groups of people he sent back, if you wanted to stay in Babylon, you could, I guess, but he sent back to Judea all of the Jews, one of which was Daniel, which is why the eeny meeny tekel upharsin legend comes from. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's like one of the few Bible things I do. So Ashurbanipal's
interesting.
The fall of Ashurbanipal and the Assyrians is recorded in the book of Daniel, and Daniel is brought, or they're having this feast. Ashurbanipal and his other noblemen and stuff are having this feast, and there's women and wine and all the jazz, and apparently they're using all of these ornamental. That's the word. Ornamental. I've had a hard time wording today.
Wording has been hard.
They're using all of this ornamental and sacred vessels and dishware that had been seized from Judea, from the temple, and they're using it for their lamb chops. And in the midst of this situation, a ghostly hand appears. And it writes on the wall as everyone's losing their collective shit. It's writing on the wall, and I believe it writes tekel tekel something upharsin, and it keeps writing this. And Ashurbanipal is supposed to have called all of his wizards and his mages and his religious folk and say, "Come tell me what this is," and they have no idea. And then one guy goes, "Hey, there's this guy that we picked up in Judea. I've heard about him. He might be able to tell us what it is." And they go and they pick up Daniel, and they bring Daniel to the palace, and this ghostly hand has written this thing, and apparently they offer him all the gold and all the jewels to tell him what it means. And essentially he goes, "I don't want any of that, but I'll tell you." And it says, "Measure, measure, weight, division." And essentially it's you've been measured. This is what they've found of you, and you will be divided there will be a division between the Medes and the Persians. And the Medes and the Persians are these two little backwatery kind of kingdoms that have been giving the Assyrians a hard time for a long while.
Meeny tekel upsharian.
Okay.
Upsarsin?
Upharsin. I can't word today.
I don't know.
But anyway, that was that legend behind it. And then apparently the night that happened, Ashurbanipal kicked Daniel out on the street and said, "I don't want to hear your guff no more." But the Medes and Persians had infiltrated the city because they had been making all of these promises to all of the disenchanted people in Babylon. And then Cyrus shows up and he sticks a sword in everybody and wins. And then becomes the great leader. And part of his thing was, "I will repatriate you back to Judea." And one of the things he did, according to legend and according to recorded histories that have been discovered, is that he actually rebuilt the temple. And he's one of the few non-Jewish people, definitely the first one, who's ever been who's been canonized as some sort of a religious figure in Judaism because of what he did in an effort to kind of revitalize these areas. Because if everybody is your friend, regardless of their religious belief, they will support you when you need them, which is pretty brilliant if you think about it. The Herodin Wall. So King Herod. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Thank you, John.
Oh, so you misspoke there.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what the exact name of it was.
Yeah, okay, cool. I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nat.
Sorry, I'm reading the chat right now.
Rants. I can't.
I've made the mistake of reading the chat, and
feel free
I'm
to ask
laughing.
questions in the comments. Whoever's watching.
Oh, hey!
So Josh,
look at that! Wow.
I was going to say, Josh. He says, "Isn't the Israeli government picky about who can look at what in terms of archaeology, anthropology?" And yes, that is very true.
Most governments are.
But yeah, exactly. I'm like, most governments are very picky about it. Some governments are open to having archaeologists, anthropologists come to them because they just don't have the people, the means to study it themselves. But other countries are like, no, we're going to take care of ourselves. Like Egypt right now, who's like telling everyone to get the hell out. Same thing with China. Yeah.
China is really locked off, and it has been for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one time.
And that's never going to change.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not.
You know, the thing about archaeology in the United States and archaeology everywhere else is that everywhere else has like the European model of archaeology where we don't.
Huh.
You know, right? You know, if you go to school over there, you become an archaeologist. You get a degree in it. Here, you get a degree in anthropology, and your focus is archaeology. So, you know, the topic material is the same, but the process and the practices are a bit different. I would have a really hard time getting a job in Britain because of my educational background, despite the fact that I have 10 years in the field and I will meet all of the educational requirements. It's still there's not much call for someone who's really good with Victorian era mining in the Rocky Mountain West and then the artifacts of Western American indigenous cultures.
Yeah, that's probably not needed in the UK specifically. Yeah. I do want to get to John's question, but really quick, Karaya, my background is in geology. And I studied anthropology kind of by accident, but ended up having a double minor in anthropology and archaeology because of my senior thesis, which I can go into that some other time. But the long and short of it is I went from studying landforms to studying rocks to studying artifacts by accident because we found artifacts where I was studying landforms. And I happened to cross the site that had been lost and then refound. So, yay.
Dragons in Genesis actually nailed it right on the head. The Jews named Cyrus Messiah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for clearing that up because that was a long time ago when I learned that.
So did you say there's no biblical artifacts have been found? I did a paper. I took a class on biblical archaeology, and the most impressive thing I found was the Tel Dan Stela, which mentioned the conquering of King David, or a battle that was fought against King David. Other than that, like, there was not a whole lot. But yeah, that's what I did my paper on, because it was like, but it was also a realization that we don't even have any evidence that David was a real king, except for this one stela which is a secondhand narrative account of something that David did, or something that they did to King David's kingdom. So yeah,
it could be considered the interpretive sign at a historical site. Here's a thing that happened here, whether or not it did.
So you're saying that they found it and then they, like we were saying earlier, developed.
It's entirely possible. When you want to have something like a story like this maintain, you either have to have education systems that teach the children, or you have to have something that reminds the people kind of continuously, or reminds visitors of the importance of an area. So when you see like an interpretive sign next to the highway or at a park, and it tells you this is what occurred here. Yeah. If there is, if a stele or a stela has been found that says this is what occurred here, and it is a second-hand account, they're repeating something that is real in their worldview and may have actually happened. The problem is that depending on the cultural nuances at the time, names might change. They might tweak it a little bit to make it fit the current narrative. Because if you go to a place, and today is a perfect example of it. If you go to, the Battle of Bighorn battlefield, and you look at the interpretive signage there, even though Custer was a complete goddamn moron, he's still not represented in such a scathing review of his skills as a military commander.
I'm just so surprised that everyone names things after him, and I'm just like, you realize you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Well, yeah, but if you look at if you were to have an indigenous group write the interpretive signs for that same spot,
oh my gosh,
the name of the place is different. The time of day might be different because they look at the time of day, they might look at the time of day, or their representations of time of day are not ours. They're not what we're familiar with. So the story can change based on who's writing it, even though it's technically the same story. The Battle of Little Bighorn and the Battle of Greasy Grass are the same event. One side tells this story, one side tells this story. So if you have a side that's telling a story and they want it to, there is a king, his name starts with D, he has been, I don't recall, did David lose? Did David win?
David lost, and as Dragon has pointed out, it mentioned the house
of David, not necessarily David himself. So it's like it's an interpretation.
Yeah, it's even
kind of.
But it's also, it is an interpretation of an event where the house of somebody who is important to that area and its history has fallen, but we're going to take it and we're going to modify it accordingly. Holidays are a great example of that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Especially with the hot topic of Juneteenth just happening.
Oh man. How do you guys, as archaeologists, how do you determine whether an archaeological find is actual evidence of something that actually happened historically, or is a fable made up about that discovery? Am I wording that correct? You know what I mean? Like
if it's real or not? Like when we come across the site?
Well, no, say you discover, like I was talking about earlier, sulfur in the site of Sodom and Gomorrah. How do you determine if, okay, this is actual evidence of recorded history, or is this fiction, fable, legend made around this discovery? Does that make sense?
With that particular evidence, like finding sulfur in the ground there,
we can use that specifically.
You would have an archaeologist present, but an archaeologist would call in a geologist to find out if there's volcanic activity in the area. If there's not volcanic activity in the area, then it would be an interesting concept. Then you go into what kind of shops were around it, what kind of trade was around the item. Like we would do everything in our power to find the source of this sulfur. And if we can't find the source of the sulfur, it's an Occam's razor thing. It's like, well, we've eliminated all the possibilities, so what remains is what it is, right? So it's what? Finding sulfur in a certain area would probably mean there was explosives or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about sulfur as like the fire and brimstone thing, there's no proof of it. There's nothing to elude it. So,
I think the combination of a written record and then the artifacts that correlate that that go with that written record are really paint a picture that that you can't argue. Like you can't change that particular narrative. The like the battle with the Carthaginians. Which one was it? The one outside of Rome, where Hannibal pretty much just hacked up the entire Roman army.
Oh.
I'm gonna look it up because there. When you look at a historical event, you have a written record. Let's see here. I type in Hannibal and it comes up with the TV show.
Yeah, I saw
Hannibal of Carthage. Hannibal Barca.
Apparently we should have him on the show. Yeah, do it.
So the Second Punic War. Cannae, the Battle of Cannae, fought during the Second Punic War between the Romans and Carthaginians, August 2nd, 216 BC. Let's see, how many, let's see here. 67,500 soldiers versus 5,700 lost by the Carthaginians.
Well, I liked John initially, but I'm starting not to anymore. Sorry.
Hi, John.
You got
no, it's not my focus. I know
it's not mine either.
Now, John, if you would like to come play, cite your sources.
Yeah.
I will be more than happy to actually defer to you when it comes to certain questions. Other than that,
he said he's willing to come on.
All right, cool.
Well, this might be one of those moments where we might have to bring him in. Maybe not today, but another time to.
I don't know.
Discuss this.
When
I
you
struggle with the potential of making trolls famous.
Yeah. I understand that. So maybe discussion off film prior to like an interview type of thing.
Wall. I know about the Haradn Wall, John. Okay. The Haradn Wall, I misspoke. It happens to the best of us.
Oh, I made a video about that just today.
Did you really? I
misspoke about something.
Well,
yeah.
So, but the things where archaeology can prove a historic event, if you have the historic event already recorded, that's a big help, because otherwise you're going to have a whole typology or a site of artifacts. You're going to have an entire, you're going to have a site there, but if you don't have a corresponding history that goes with it, the only thing you can say is you have a site of this. And say you take a Roman battlefield like the Battle of Cannae. If we didn't know what happened there, if it had not been recorded, but archaeologists come across a site and there's hundreds of bodies with artifacts that identify them as Roman, and there are artifacts that are indicative to the Roman army, and none of these remains died well or died quietly, all that would be able to be said is that at this point, according to the provenance data and the test data that we have, at some point in the 2nd century BC, there was a battle, and it looks like the Romans lost, because we found very few sets of remains and artifacts that are indicative of the Carthaginians. The fact that we have a historical account to go with it and a location, the Battle of Cannae is quite famous, so this might not be the greatest example, but you can actually say, have the piece of paper in front of you, here. Okay, we have Roman stuff. We have Carthaginian stuff. Look at the artifacts. What do we got? Roman stuff, Carthaginian stuff. It all dates to roughly the same time period.
So it seems to be within, like, it's in situ. So we know it's meant to be there.
Extrapolate, that there is, in fact, a historic event that occurred in this place.
Yeah.
And that it corresponds with the written record.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the stuff with the Bible as a written record, well, it just like with all human writings, because it was written by a human, it's got a bias to it, an innate bias to it, purposeful or not. There's an aspect. Hi there, Gail. We're not going to try to get into that. I'm breaking it down the best I can in as neutral terms as possible.
If you would like, I know Christianity better than you do, and better than most of everybody.
I was going to say,
I'm just going to defer to him.
Get on my level, and then leave that comment.
Anyway, if you have a historical account, even a legendary one, like fine, the Bible. Let's use the Bible as a historical account. Let's take what's an event in the Bible that would leave a large footprint within the archaeological record. Ricky, if you have an event.
Yeah, a big one.
Sorry, ask that question.
I know. Would the battle between David and Goliath be a decent one?
No.
No, probably not.
Okay. Samson with the ox's jaw. I'm remembering the song before I remember the actual Samson and Delilah. I'm remembering the song. Samson is supposed to kill how many people with the jawbone of a donkey?
Like
how many?
3,000, 5,000.
We would have found a mass site.
We would have found a mass site of people that would be that would have been put in their graves by Samson. There would be a mass grave,
bludgeoned to death.
Yeah, they would all have been. Yeah, and the way that they would have died would have also been a tell.
Oh yeah, but you can look. I mean, you can if you had an intact burial of one of those Philistine soldiers, right? I can't remember whoever he was fighting.
I think it was Philistine.
If you had an intact skeleton with the armor, or I don't know if they had armor, it might have just been padded jerkins or something like that and wicker shields. I have no idea. But if you have a burial with all of those indicative artifacts in it, and it's the entire right side of its skull is caved in with an object that is shaped like a sickle, but blunt, i.e. a jawbone, you could say, okay, this guy got bludgeoned to death. Here's your CSI moment. This guy suffered blunt force trauma to the head. Bummer to be him. If you find a field of even 500, not even 3,000, let's just say 500. Let's put realistic numbers in the place of the fantastical ones. Even if you find 500 and they all died the same way, you're going to have a situation on your hands where you either go 500 prisoners all were executed the same way by 500 other people with the same weapon, or 100 people with the same weapon taking care of 5 each, or you're going to have an event like Samson killing everybody with the jawbone of a donkey. One is not indicative, or one is not going to prove anything. It proves that somebody got smashed. 2, the more you have, though, the bigger of a footprint you have is when you can actually tie it to something, because in written record, big events are what are recorded. You don't, when you look at the history of the Oregon Trail is a huge story and everybody knows it. And they all know that Timmy died of dysentery because we've all played the game.
Yeah.
But if I were to tell you one name of someone who was on the Oregon Trail, and I tell you their story, but don't tell you they were on the Oregon Trail, you're going to be like, that's an interesting story. What does it have to do with this? Even though it's right in the middle of it.
Nat, check the private chats real quick.
Okay. Sorry. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, you've been watching my face, haven't you?
I
don't hide things very well. Yeah, no, there's a lot of drama going on in this comment section. And some of the things I'd like to address, and some of them I feel like we're being attacked for not being a Middle Eastern archaeologist specifically, but I can't say that archaeological practice is a science, and it's something you learn, and it's something that's practiced worldwide. And when you learn these methods, they are consistent throughout the world of finding sites. So whether or not we are Middle Eastern or archaeologists, we can still comment on the discoveries that are found because we are professionals. We do study this stuff. I mean, maybe not to an extent that a person from the Middle East studying Middle Eastern culture does, but in this particular scenario, this is the best you got. So if you can find a very good archaeologist that we would like that you want to bring onto the show, I am more than willing to talk to one. I would love it.
I know a few.
I do too, actually. I was just thinking. I know one that she's almost done with her PhD. She's been working in Tel Aviv for the last 9 years.
Lucky.
And yeah, I know, lucky her. But she's doing museum studies. So what she does is she goes on the digs, and then she goes into the museums, and she makes the artifacts pretty, and then she goes through the details of documenting them, and then arranging them, and she's amazing. I do not think I can get her on the show. She is completely antisocial, which is very normal within our field. So I'm
surprised
tricky.
I'm on here.
Sorry.
No, it's fine, and I'm okay with it.
I throw you into bad situations. That's my
just
fault.
as long as I have a sword and enough room to swing it.
I mean,
by the way, Gail.
Oh yeah. We don't hate Christianity, by the way.
I'm not going to make any sort of assumption about you. I'd take it in kind if you didn't about me.
I'm sensing a persecution complex. I'm not
afraid. That's okay. Hey, you know what? There's lots of people that have persecution complexes. Let's step away from the Bible and talk about another historical event that has, well, what is it? No archaeological evidence whatsoever. Nat, would you like Captain Kidd on Oak Island?
No, I don't want to talk about that. I really don't want to talk about Oak Island. But like, we don't want the Middle East, right? Oh, here's the hot topic on your TikTok right now. What about Egyptians in the Grand Canyon?
Oh, get fucked.
Okay, a better one.
But I'm not an Egyptologist. I mean, what am I going to know about the Grand Canyon, even though I worked in the Southwest for a number of years?
Yeah.
So the thing that archaeology has across the board, and every single legend, every single historical account, and every single religious background and basis, i.e. the Bible, they all have, is that one is written and one actually deals with stuff in hand and deals with all of that data that lots and lots of people don't seem to really have either the nous, the desire, or the time to even bother with the idea of considering it. I think it, I have never had a problem with religion. Never. If it's not mine, it's not mine. I don't care. My faith system exists the way it exists. It services me, and that's all it ever had to do. Yeah. It's when people screech at me, I'd drink a beer with Jesus. I wouldn't drink a beer with
I want to drink a beer with Jesus. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine what his wine would taste like? I just want to know.
Like just
flavor it.
It's funny you say that, Nat, because when Jesus turned the water into wine, they were all like, "Why did you use the good wine for later?" Because what they did is they used the good wine earlier on in the party, and then when they were all numbed out and starting to be a little tipsy, then they would bring out the cheap, shitty wine. Mm-hmm. But the wine that Jesus made was good shit, and it was.
I imagine.
And it was at a point in the party where it was supposed to be not so good quality. So they were like, "Why did you bring out the good stuff now? That was supposed to be."
I like how this is like an actual thing. That's hilarious.
It's biblical. So what the wine that Jesus made was better than the best wine that they had at that party. Oh, that is biblical. Come at me.
Hey, you know what? Biblical parties. So here's one. Here's one that is going to actually, here's a couple here that I'm seeing. All right. Daniel McCarthy, what's my opinion of a worldwide flood? Didn't happen.
Nope.
So a worldwide flood would leave a deposition layer of mud, similar across and the same depth across the entirety of the planet.
Geologists would be wondering what the hell is this? And it would be a huge topic.
The geologists would see the dirt. The archaeologists would see an entire stoppage of human material culture on a global scale for a number of years within the archaeological record. that all ends at the same point and is all, ironically, imprisoned in that same silt layer.
Yeah.
And then the death of every single animal, the death of every single animal, with the exception of the ones that got on the ark, supposedly, that would create a fossil bed layer. Also, the death of all of the vegetation would create a layer mixed in with that silt that in a couple million years would probably become oil.
Hey, Shannon Q's in here.
I was just going to say, I love Shannon's comment.
And then there is this wonderful thing that dead bodies put off, methane, as they decompose, which would exist in ice cores.
In stalagmites or heliothemes. We would have seen them in dirt records. We would have seen it in tree records. They would have had a record growth year. You would have seen it in all sorts of locations.
Let me play devil's advocate, because we have many different myths about a flood, you guys.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So you have the Enuma Elish, you have the Epic of Gilgamesh, you have the Account in Genesis, all talking about different cultures talking about a flood. So that is clearly evidence that there was a global flood at some point historically, right?
No.
Because a lot of creationist stories do talk with the fact that oceans started. If you could go to anything in the South Pacific, most of their creationist stories talk about how the islands appeared out of the ocean. Well, it's kind of how islands appear. It happens. But like origin stories are so common that like all origins obviously have to appear through a disaster. That just makes sense, right?
Some sort of massive change. If you look at science, the Big Bang.
Yeah,
there's a fundamental change in everything that makes up the universe.
Yeah,
there's a fundamental change everywhere that changes a cultural identity. Be it war, be it a plague event, be it a flood. Now, I've been seeing a lot of people pointing out flood stuff, especially considering I did a little bit on the Ark, where the original flood myth comes from Mesopotamia, probably Sumer, where it is a farmer who made a boat that put all his farm animals on it, all 7 of them. That's great. Did he invent a boat that you could suddenly use to get your animals across the water, like, say, a ferry or a barge, which is now actually within modern day use, vessels of that type? That's an interesting story, especially if it was a lesson where everyone else was like, you're being an idiot. You're not going to get your horse and your angry goat on a boat. Well, when he's alone with an angry horse and a goat left, people remember that. There's another event that could actually be the inspirational event for the biblical flood.
Oh.
Yeah. The collapse of the Bosphorus.
Why does that sound familiar?
So the Bosphorus is that narrow strait between Turkey or between Istanbul. Istanbul's built on both sides, right?
Yeah. Constantinople at the time.
Constantinople at the time.
Sure.
So that is the southernmost point of connecting land before it collapsed from the Middle East and Asia to Europe. Otherwise, you have to go all the way around the north end of the Black Sea to get to Europe. When, for whatever geological event happens, call it a volcano, call it an eruption, call it a tsunami from an eruption in the middle of the Mediterranean, causing enough damage to break this natural earth obstruction, you have an event that floods the area around the Black Sea. Now, studies have shown, one of my favorite underwater archaeologists ever, he was a hero of mine. He still is. He still is. I just haven't followed his career very much in the last 15, 20 years since I've been working on my own. Robert Ballard has done a lot of work in the Black Sea. And when you get to the middle of the Black Sea, roughly, there is a section where it drops precipitously in the middle, like there was another sea there or a lake. So the current Black Sea, if you're on the shelf, is it has shipwrecks and is quite similar to all other seas about the same depth. But then you get to this black zone in the middle. Mm-hmm. And when you go down into that, the water actually is acidic.
Yep.
Because it's under so much pressure and it's been dead essentially.
It is literally a dead sea within the sea.
Locked, down there. And what it does is it eats everything metal, but it leaves wood intact. And it also leaves stone intact. And as much as people
mostly leaves. It depends on the stone.
This is true. But here's the thing though. You know what the deposition layer of ocean and sea silt is? Like a half a millimeter a decade. It's minimal. Mm-hmm. It will take somewhere to the tune of 15,000 years for the sediment to bury the wreck of the aircraft carrier Yorktown off of the island of Midway. And it's in the middle of a current zone, which is moving sediment. So expeditions have gone down there, and you know what they found on the shores of this dead zone? Houses, fire pits, villages that all are within this flooded area, and they're Neolithic. They are Stone Age. These are pit houses. There's no real farming. This is very, very, very primitive civilization. Yet here it is, completely inundated under water, which suddenly comes out of nowhere. Slowly, I mean, hell, it may have taken your proverbial 40 days to flood out. And that's an event that will go down via oral tradition for generations upon generations. And back before you understand that tectonic movement of the Earth's crust causes events like this to happen, causes, earthquakes, you will attribute something like that to the gods, or in the Bible's case, to a god.
No, that's exactly it. Yeah.
So it's entirely possible that this particular flood event that people recognize as the biblical flood stems from what is actually a small scale event in the history of the planet.
Just oral tradition.
And it's just an oral tradition that comes down.
Yeah. Well, it's also like a big fish story, like you go fishing, you catch a fish, but it gets away. But you got to talk about how big the fish was.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the fish was huge, right? I mean, it was massive. I mean, it could have covered the whole world for all we know.
Mm-hmm. I've been asked to give my opinion of the empty copper mines.
Wait, what empty copper mines?
I was going to say which ones.
Okay, so there's a pseudoscience theory.
Pseudoscience. Here we go. Here we go.
So there's a pseudoscientific theory that the Copper Age and the Bronze Age in Europe was fed by copper from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and that these deposits of copper were picked up off the ground, excavated, taken away, and taken by the Phoenicians, or people who are pre-Proto-Phoenician, to Europe, to Africa, to Asia, and create the copper and then into the Bronze Age. Well, no. It's really interesting on how many copper mines in that area were stripped without any sort of documentation, because documentation requires taxes being paid on it.
So
there are copper artifacts across the entirety of North America. Mm-hmm. As much as people initially think the indigenous populations of this continent were not metal workers, they were. They worked in copper. They worked in natural copper. The copper that comes out of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is the same 99% pure quality that came out of Butte, Montana, and Jerome, Arizona. Concentrations that were so pure you didn't actually have to smelt it down. Or if you did, it was pretty minimal. You did not have to get very much foreign material matrix out of that copper in order to make it pure. So it takes a minimum amount of work. The mines themselves that have been stripped are all indicative of Georgian era and Victorian era mining. What tailing piles do exist are indicative of the stuff that we see in Montana in respect to the gold, copper, and silver mines here. The difference is that they made an effort to reclaim those areas and hide it, because at the time period of copper being bigger than gold and silver combined, it was worth so much money that the government would do anything to get its greedy little fingers into it. And copper has been recognized as a useful metal far longer than anybody else, or than any of the others, because of its ease of working with. So in the Americas, especially when you get up into the UP, fur traders knew about it first when it comes to Europeans finding out about it. Possibly the Vikings, but there's no evidence that the Vikings made it that far. But it would have been one of those things of, we're not getting rich off of beaver pelts, but there's this other stuff. And once the copper was really established, once the copper business in Michigan was established in the mid 1800s and goes all the way through the Victorian period, all the way until after the Second World War, all of these mines not only are mined, they are remined and mined again, because the technology you use in 1823 is nowhere near as good as the technology that is used in 1923 or 1963. There's gold mines there's gold operations in Montana today that in the 1930s, they took $10 million in gold out of a mine, and it took them a decade. Pretty cool. The mining company that's not in.
You put that up there to piss me off. I know you did.
There's mining operations now that don't even go into the ground. They don't even go into the mine.
No.
They process the tailing piles. And the technology that they have today pulls a 100%, 98% extraction of gold out of the tailings. And when in the 1800s and early 1900s, when you have a situation where you're throwing 60% of your gold away into the tailing pile.
It's worth going through.
So when these theories about the copper mines in the UP come up, there is no way at all to establish that any pre-metal culture from Europe or Africa or wherever was able to mine anything out of it, because the industrialized mining of the Industrial Revolution has completely destroyed and compromised all of that site integrity, if it existed.
I gotta say real quick, you guys in the comments are killing it tonight.
I love it.
This is the best comment stream I think we've had so far on my channel. Keep it coming. You guys are doing awesome.
Veritas, gold is.
I wish my poker face was better, Dustin. I honestly do, but it sucks.
I gotta step away. I'll be right back. Okay.
Go for it.
Good.
Give me a second to breathe.
Anyone in the comments, feel free to ask a question.
I'm not going to answer. So, Gail, I think that was a joke, so I don't think I have to say anything. But
Was that a joke?
She said it later on, because I messaged and was like, "You're kidding, right?" And she was just like, "No, yeah." And I was like, "Okay, so that's Midwestern talk for." Yes, she was kidding.
No.
But Europe's metals.
It was a literal question.
World had extensive.
Okay, if it was a literal question.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, well, hold on just a second.
It seems like a genuine question, not like a.
This is chert. I'm showing you a rock. This is chert. I found this at one of the lakes down here in the Ozarks. This is from over 300 million years ago.
Really?
Really? Yeah. This is super old chert. Recent, obviously, you can see I cut into it because the layers were beautiful.
It's like wood grain.
It looks like wood grain because it's deposited. That's how layers are. Each of one of these could be a few thousand years. I don't have the equipment on hand to test it, but this stuff is old. You can't tell me. I'm not even into geology. Okay, well, let's talk about what geology is. It's the study of the earth. Okay? Geology has nothing to do with culture. Now, granted, culture interacts with the earth, right? People interact with the earth constantly. So archaeologists are in constant need of geologists around. That is something you do not hear very often with archaeologists. They like to be pretty proud of themselves and not say anything. But the truth of the matter is, when they don't understand something that has something to do within the ground, they will find a geologist.
Sure.
How can you do it?
And that is where
that's a genuine question. How can you as archaeologists and geologists date the artifacts that you find?
Do you want to take this one? Because I know you're going to talk about carbon dating, and I'll let you talk about
carbon
it.
Dating, and there's the drilling of like the ice layers and.
Oh, I can talk about that part.
Yes, you can.
I can do the isotopes.
There's multiple methods, but
there's
multiple methods.
There's floating methods. There's continuous methods. There are individual times that you can find that are interpreted. One of the things that one of my professors studied was speleothems, which are stalagmites. Stalagmites are constant deposition of soils as they drip from a stalactite, right? So in a cave. When you cut open these stalagmites on a vertical edge, you see these layers. They are beautiful layers. Each layer is like, you can count them year by year by year, and you can tell how wet it was. You can tell what isotopes are stuck within the mud. You can tell what components are stuck within the mud. You can tell if there were flooding events. You can tell if there were. You can tell if there were.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so weird how this happens. And the thing is, these speleothems, these rocks, will line up exactly, and I do mean exactly, with the ice cores and with the tree rings and with these petrified wood rings. I mean, they will interlap and lap. They will. I mean, it's perfect. There's no differentiation. And we've done this all over the world in the northern and southern hemisphere. We've taken ice cores from from Antarctica and from the Arctic, which has pretty much disappeared at this point. And we've taken petrified wood samples from all over, and you can tell, depending on what chemicals you find, what minerals you find within them, you can tell how hot it was. You can tell. I mean, climatology is its own field within geology, and my professor was a climatologist. In fact, he's one of the best in the business right now. If you want to look him up, I totally encourage it. His name is Ron Denniston. He is amazing at what he does.
Ron Wyatt?
No. No. But yeah.
I'm discovering if I have a problem with somebody, I need to take Nat to the bar they're hanging out with and just point at them and say, they said shit about geology, and run.
Yeah.
Here is Nat. She is my personal hand grenade.
I'm personal so hand grenade. I don't look like I would. Well, but the thing is,
that is a very accurate way to describe it.
That's the fucked up thing. Is I will do it with a smile on my face.
Wow, Cryaholi. I can't pronounce that correctly. I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. 50,000 years is the maximum reach for carbon dating. But uranium lead dating, however, goes back 2 million and change.
More than 2 million.
More than 2.
Right. Yeah.
No, you're right.
We can use uranium dating on meteorites.
Lead dating, that's something I actually
uranium lead dating.
Yeah, it's uranium lead.
It's I'm not that familiar with it. I actually looked it up as part of breaking down the London Hammer. Somebody asked me about the London Hammer, and I had to shoot that down.
I think that was something that we discussed.
The carbon-14 dating only goes back 50,000 years because that's the half-life of carbon.
That is.
Now,
the half-life of uranium is 4.5 billion years.
Yep.
So we are able to identify a lot from that. Lead dating is actually different than uranium dating in that it uses a half-life that is, before I say a number, I'm going to double check.
Sure.
But it is not as old.
To go towards the carbon dating, I have to point something out. You cannot carbon date something that is not organic, that does not have carbon in it.
Yeah.
Which is why when people say you can't date a dinosaur bone, they're right, because technically a dinosaur bone is a rock. You can't date an arrowhead because technically an arrowhead is a rock. Now, if you found an arrowhead that still had remains of the shaft hafted to it, or the organic material, hemp string, sinew, whatever, that would have tied it to the arrow shaft itself, you would then be able to carbon date that. And because it's attached to the arrowhead, you could then get an accurate date for that arrowhead, which again is why the provenance is so important, because I can find an arrowhead and then I can take all of the information about the arrowhead and where it is in the ground and everything that goes along with it. And I can give my data to Natalie, and she will tell me, based on the geological stuff of its age. I could then take it to a dendrologist and say, this was found, say I find an arrowhead in a tree, but the tree itself has been rotted and almost non-existent. I could bring it to a dendrologist who could do whatever tests they do on it, and they could say, this is the potential age of this tree, which means whenever this arrow was stuck in the tree, it had to have been between this point and this point in history. Yeah, so the fields play off of each other a lot.
And say geologists will go to dendrologists whenever we come across petrified trees as well, because we want to know what they were. We want to know their location and how to map their rings accurately. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
So really cool. All the sciences play off of each other.
So geology is, if I'm right, is earthly materialism. It is and it isn't, because there's now Xenogeology, which is fascinating. And I am a little obsessed.
Space
rocks.
Michael Justin wants to point out the Kensington Runestone is
what is Xenogeology for the ones in the comments who don't know.
Xenogeology is studying.
Not me. I definitely know what that is.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah,
them,
no, absolutely dead.
Yeah.
Xenogeology is the study of rocks from space, not on Earth, the ones that are actually out there. So right now, Xenogeology is looking at lunar rocks. It's looking at Mars rocks, which haven't made their way back to Earth yet.
But they can see the data that comes from the machine.
Oh, so excited. But we've already been looking at a lot of the Mars rovers pictures to see the formations that are already on that planet. So through the formations, we can identify what might be an igneous rock, a metamorphic rock, a sedimentary rock. It all just depends on what comes back. Now, it's tricky because everything there is orange, red. So we're just like, oh, colors are hard. But colors are one of the worst way to identify rocks. Also one of the most prominent, but one of the worst ways to identify rocks.
I want to roll back real quick here and point out and address a comment Veritas left in dealing with gold. Gold and copper. The thing asked was, don't they know gold is worth more than copper? No,
it's not.
Not necessarily. Mm-mm. So one of the things that affects the value of something in a culture is its rarity, which applies to gold, or its use. So one of the things that I am probably one of the best at, not to toot my own horn, but I would be willing to say that Victorian era mining in Montana, I'm the archaeologist you put on that. Because
that is your niche. That is your
work. That's what I did most of my undergrad work on.
Good to know.
Not by choice, because it was what was available. But
that's why I studied Clovis, is not by choice. That was what was available.
Yeah. But copper is far more useful than gold. You have copper pipes. You have copper wiring. You have copper bushings.
It's conductive. Very conductive.
It's very conductive. It is harder than gold, not by a lot.
Podcast.
but you can utilize copper. Now, one of the things that when you look at mining from the Victorian period, why copper is worth so much money, look at what's also going on in the United States and the rest of the world, to be perfectly honest, but we'll focus on the US. What's going on in the 1860s and 70s and 80s? Thomas Edison and all of the other electrical guys are illuminating the country. What do they need? Copper. All of the big cities on the East Coast have Butte copper. All of them. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to the Second World War. Copper is still a useful thing. Gold is backing the currency. Silver is there. 1865 comes around because more silver was being found than gold. The Sherman Silver Act kind of shut that down, created a small problem with silver mines. But silver occurs pretty close to copper and also occurs with lead. So in the Second World War, when you have mining going on in the United States during the war effort, which requires machinery, tires, fuel, things that are rationed, they shut down the mining of gold completely. There's whole gold mines that are stripped of every single bit of metal for scrap for the war effort because you made more money off of scrap metal than you did gold. But copper, there's that gray airplane behind me, a real one. There is 4.5 miles of wiring in a P-51 Mustang. One. And we built 12,000 of them. How much wiring is in an aircraft carrier?
Oh,
we launched 38 fleet aircraft carriers. We launched 223 Buckley-class destroyer escorts. All of those have wire in it made of copper. They also have fittings made of copper. What about every single harbor facility, factory, everywhere in the United States that's building stuff for the war effort? Well, they need copper. What also does copper go in, Nat? Brass?
Yes. They will go into brass.
How many shell casings do you think we made in the Second World War?
How many are we making now?
That's a very good question.
I don't know. A lot?
Gold has 4 uses compared to copper's 50,000 uses.
God, right?
So
There's
copper
so
actually makes more money. It is actually worth more. So the irony is that you're buying copper with gold. Yeah. But gold is rare, and we live in that society, and we live in that idea that if you have a rare thing, it is valuable. So, that airplane behind me, when it was brand new, it was $45,000. Woo, you could buy a Chevy pickup for that. Now, that airplane is to the tune of $7 million. But there's only 36 of them. It's therefore valuable because of its rarity. And that's where you go with why something which is not perceived as being valuable, is valuable over the rare thing.
It's very true. When I was a teenager, I was a electrician or electrician's helper. And my boss, who owned the entire company, he sent everyone else into their respective job sites, and he had me stay there at the shop. And he was like, I want you to peel all the insulation off of this copper. That's all I did. I took a razor knife and I peeled all the copper off.
Sounds about right.
And I was making $10 an hour at the time. And he cashed all that copper in for hundreds of dollars. Mm-hmm. And he gave me a little bonus for it because I cut myself open and shit doing it. But
I'm sure that wasn't the only time you've ever cut yourself open.
Yeah, I've cut myself open a lot because reasons. But yeah, so
reasons.
Reasons. Oh yeah,
and then
for Christ's sake. I've forgotten about that.
That happened earlier, right?
It did. It happened about 4 hours ago.
Somebody smart enough and special enough to cut himself open with a spoon. He cut himself open with a spoon.
Yeah.
No. I did not cut
It's
myself.
Because copper is a more practical metal than silver or gold or anything else. Like copper has, there's a lot more uses for those to, like a church or a building or anything, because the pipes are made of copper. They don't corrode as fast as like silver or gold does. So that's kind of why they're worth a similar amount, if not more. Where was I going with this? I don't even remember. But no, it's
copper ornamentation was not considered rich.
What was it? We had a few years ago. We had like a the polar vortex. And everything froze over, and there was a bunch of reports of churches that had a bunch of their copper pipes missing. Like people had went and under their churches, and they took all the pipes away, or the copper piping away, so they could sell them and make money. Because that's how much copper is worth. Like copper is worth a little bit of money, like more than you'd expect. Not as much as gold or silver, but it's much more common or accessible. So if you can collect a good amount of copper, you can get more than you would if you collected a tiny bit of gold. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What's going on in the comments?
I'm just giggling because they called you Backstreet.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't Backstreet. It wasn't Backstreet.
Because of my hair. That's why I have.
I didn't know. No, I did not cut myself with a spoon, Nat. Get it right.
It was a metal measuring cup.
I cut myself with a metal measuring cup.
That was spoon shaped.
No, it was a half. It was a quarter cup measuring cup that I cut my finger on. Yes, I am that talented.
I cut myself with a kama, which is a weapon in ninjutsu, which was. It's a tiny sickle, which is used to harvest rice. And I got 15 stitches in the back of my knee. Because I was practicing, because I was really into martial arts at the time, and I was practicing with them, and I cut the back of my knee open. It was really cool because you could see everything. Like you could open the skin up, and you could see
infinity.
It didn't bleed a whole lot. You'd think, but it didn't. It bled a lot at first.
Well, that just means you cut through the meat, not the vein.
Like it bled a lot for a split second, and then you could see like literally the back of my knee and the muscles where it all connected with the tendons and everything.
Yeah, my mother cut her thumb open like that, cutting a bagel when I was like 7, and had to go to the hospital for stitches. And for the next, she still talks about it, 30 years. Every time it comes up, she's like, I could see infinity.
Yeah,
I know what that means. I could see the end and the beginning. Josh wants to know how you're still alive, Ricky.
I think so. I was very accident
but how?
prone. Yeah, I don't know.
I think everybody's sort of accident prone or has had some sort of event where they're like, how the hell are you still living?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've
got at least 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
See,
do you want to talk about one of them? What's your favorite one?
Oh.
I got hugged by a mountain lion.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Hugged or hugged?
Well, he attacked me.
Okay.
He attacked me. He cuddled me hard enough to make me drop my rifle.
I mean, was this on a? This wasn't on a dig. This is just out when you're out.
I was hunting.
Oh, okay.
You were just out having fun, taking in the scenery.
Yeah, hunting
and
deer.
A mountain lion hugged you, and that's.
Yep. 6 months old. Pretty
it's
skinny
a
and really.
baby.
Oh, he's pretty needy. He was all skin and bone, which
poor guy.
Unfortunately for him, but no, yeah, that was an incident. I shouldn't have been walking by myself, but
probably.
My brother got his penis bit by an alligator.
Well, what? Dungeons and Genesis just won that. We're
Dragons in Genesis.
Dragon. Wow.
Okay.
I word good.
See,
You word
We're
great.
done.
So proud of you.
I put jumper cables on my penis when I was little. It wasn't
Why?
hooked up. It wasn't hooked up to a car battery.
I'm in the wrong group.
But yeah, you are now.
I am too, apparently.
So, like, the only thing that would match is if I'm like, oh yeah, jumper cables. I hooked those up to my nipples once.
My
Yeah,
kink is not your kink.
Whatever you
It's
want.
not
Kink is not my kink.
Kink is not my kink. My kink is knowledge.
Knowledge. That is the best kink to have.
Yeah.
No ledge.
No ledge. I think the whole breaking my leg in the field this past year is probably the closest thing to like the death concept. I mean, I've had a lot of close run-ins, but that was the biggest injury I've ever had to experience, and I still had to crawl my way out a mile to the truck. So that wasn't fun.
I've crashed 3 small airplanes.
Yeah, see, you all get the cool stories. I mean, I walked over a bomb field that could have had some active bombs that no one told me about.
I've done that.
Yeah, but that's actually a CRM, go-to. Everybody's done that in CRM.
Ricky,
See,
you're right?
I got shot when I was 17, and I was working as a bagger at a grocery store called Food Lion in Virginia. And 2 gunmen came in, and one of them shot me through the shoulder. I still have the scar. It just barely missed my lung. So I could have very closely died in that moment. And then I went to Iraq, and I was never shot. I was shot.
I thought he got shot in Iraq.
I was shot at, and I had a mortar land so close to me that the shock wave, like, it felt like I got punched in the heart really hard.
So I understand.
John, the
I've been
segues in
shot
this
at
are
a few
just
times myself in the field.
Yeah.
That happens when you
too.
walk on someone's property and they're not entirely sure who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even if they do know who you are, there's a lot of people that just do not want you on their property, and gunshots have been rung out. And I have literally watched someone walk out their door, shoot a gun at me. I've turned tail and I've walked off property to call them.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting thing.
We were walking and we got sprung by a guy in a spider hole. He looked like Tweaker Doc Brown, and he appeared out of nowhere with a sawed-off shotgun, 6 feet from me, and was like, "This is my land." I'm like, "Yeah, you're damn right it is. We are so sorry. We didn't see the fence.
So sorry. Excuse me.
Pointed
near the.
We got out of there, and we were up on the ridge where the trucks were parked, and I was watching him through the binoculars, and he's still milling around down there with his sawed off. And then he stopped and he sat down, and I realized he was sitting kind of in a hole, and he crawled down in this hole, and I think it was either a piece of tin or a piece of plywood. He kind of pulled it over the hole and threw some dirt on it from underneath, like hermit crab. And I genuinely I'm like, wow, Arizona's fuck.
Wow. Gotta watch where I'm walking now.
Brian Holly wants to know if there's going to be a nerdy segment.
Yeah,
being that we've covered archaeology in the Bible.
No, that's what this nerdy segment is. Like, usually, like, the last 10, 15, 20 minutes of the show, we do like a nerdy segment.
Random shit.
But like every now and then, the topic of discussion blends into the nerdy segment seamlessly.
Very much so.
And that's what's happening here. So,
while sharing terrifying life experiences.
The U.S. is more dangerous than Iraq. Well, at least the danger in Iraq is more direct.
in my experience, because again, I got shot here directly, but in Iraq, I just got shot at. People shot in my general direction.
I was definitely shot in the general direction, but I don't know if they were aiming for me, but I definitely heard the pew! Off of one of the rocks I was standing on. So I was like, that was rather close. Okay.
Cat lady at Toston, Montana. No, this was down near Wickenburg, Arizona. The crazy spider.
Mine was up in Montana.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's just
we also found mustard gas on a site.
What happened to the guy who shot you? Do you want to put that up? Yeah. So this guy. Okay. Oh.
Do we have time for that?
Do we have time?
Did he go to jail?
I'll make it as short as I can. So it was two gunmen. They came in the grocery store. One of them shot me. The other one took the register. Months later, the guy who shot me robbed another grocery store. This grocery store had a security guard. The security guard shot him and took him down. He was alive, and when he was arrested, he snitched, and he told who his buddy was. And turns out they had done a bunch of like robberies. I was the only person that they shot, but they had done a string of robberies in the area.
Well, what did you do?
What did I do?
Why did you?
He's just too pretty.
Backstreet was too pretty. He needed a scar.
What they explained to me is the cops and the investigative team said is the violence and aggression in their crime spree was escalating. So like they started robbing like small gas stations, what have you, and then they seemed to get like more and more violent. And they got to me, and then the guy he held his gun, and this was in the security footage. He held his gun up to the back of my head for a second, and then he brought it down to my shoulder, and he shot me in the shoulder. So it was like he just wanted to know what it was like to shoot somebody. And I was the lucky candidate.
Congratulations. You're so lucky.
Nice.
So he got caught. He got arrested. I did the whole trial thing. I pointed him out like they were all covered up. I couldn't tell exactly who it was, but one was taller than the other, and anyway. So they all ended up in jail for a long time. And this is when I was 17 years old. Fast forward to 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I get a restitution check in the mail from this motherfucker for $65.
That was it?
That was it. But then I got another one for like $55. And I haven't got another one since. But like that's the way, like in prison, when you work off restitution, you make like $1 an hour. If that. That
Wow.
is a generous amount. So yeah, like this guy he shot me, he got locked up, and then almost 10 years later, now I'm making a little bit of cheddar from that.
A little.
Buy a couple of 6-packs of beer, I guess.
I mean, one good bottle of whiskey.
Whatever.
One decent bottle of whiskey. I can't say good. The good stuff's way too expensive.
But anyway, yeah, like that happened here in the States, and I got to Iraq, and people like shot at me, but they're terrible at their job. So I never got shot, just shot at. And other things happened, whatever. But yeah, so it's like, wow, I was a bagger at a grocery store in the US and I got shot. And then I went to a literal war zone in Iraq for a year and I just got shot at, like, in my general direction.
That's so metal.
So, yeah. It's like, what does that say? What does that say?
It says a lot about America, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well.
So,
yeah, if we talk about anything more, if we talk about any more archaeology within the Bible, I feel like we're just going to have a crazy blow up stream again.
Yeah. Pick something.
Am I a whiskey girl? Am I a whiskey girl?
Are you a whiskey girl, Nat?
Are you a whiskey girl?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Well, yes and no. I worked at a distillery for a while and had to be trained in my nasal and tasting abilities because I got my stewardship. And when you get your stewardship, you have to be able to identify different alcohols, different textures, different aging techniques, and the different flavors that show up within whiskey. Unfortunately, for a while there, it kind of ruined me because I really only like the good stuff now, and I cannot afford the good stuff at all. So when I'd go to judging competitions, it was lovely.
So if you guys want to buy Nat whiskey, her
It's better if you buy me a cigar. Let's put it that way, because I don't know much about cigars. And yeah, I'll smoke a cigar every now and then. In fact, I might grab one with when I come up visit. Sure. We can sit around a campfire and smoke and chill.
See, that's how I am with coffee, because I worked at Starbucks for like 5 years. I was a supervisor at Starbucks for 2 years. Yeah.
This one needs good coffee.
Yeah, and like they put you through seminars.
You're just like, the coffee has to be acceptable, because if it's bad, we'll have a bad day.
They teach you how to like take in the aromas and distinguish like the notes of like nutty or smoky or earthy or like whatever. And like they train you on all that. And now I'm like cheap coffee is just fucking gross to me. And I'm like, no, I need, I'm spoiled. I need some good shit.
John says he has the good stuff and he'll send me a sample if you have me on ABS. What's ABS?
Absinthe?
And absinthe's good.
And what?
Ooh!
I don't like licorice, so absinthe is not my thing.
I hate licorice.
So, I really don't like the taste of it. So that was one of the worst tests. The licorice stuff. I was like, bleh.
Speaking of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the box?
What?
A box?
Be right back.
Oh, show and tell time. Is that what's happening right now?
I can do show and tell. No, I can do well.
I'm excited for show and tell.
Show and tell. I have a lot more besides that, though. I don't know what he's getting, but I really hope I get to have a sip of it when I show up.
Okay.
I am intrigued.
I am intrigued.
Exciting.
What is even happening right now? I was all prepared to close out the show and say goodnight to everybody, and then this is
now we just need to know.
Yeah.
All right. So I has connections, which is why friends of mine call upon me to assist them with questions and problems dealing specifically with this field and preservation.
What a knife.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get us banned now.
It's not the greatest. It's a gas station kniff.
Oh, it's a kniff.
It's a kniff. It's suited its purpose, and now I just use it to open boxes.
Tis not my ridiculous gift.
Here's a story.
My ridiculous kniff.
So there is, when I was up at Garnett, some of the structures there are still private.
Oh, yeah.
A number of them actually are still private, including one that was owned by a gentleman named Frank Fitzgerald, whose only trip outside of Montana was when the U.S. Navy gave him a fully paid for, all expenses paid trip to the South Pacific on a destroyer during the war. Anyway, his house that he lived in was the house that his father built in 1910. His father owned the Garnett Saloon and Hotel, which is actually the building that started the fire that burned down most of the town in 1912.
Good for him.
And underneath this cabin was purchased by Frank died in like 2002. The cabin was purchased by a family who lives in Drummond. And the people who took care of that house were actually park rangers at Garnett in the 1970s and early 80s. And this was kind of like where they came from. So they had a chance to buy Frank's cabin, and they did. And unfortunately, the cabin itself has needed a lot of work, including the replacement of the floor joists underneath the kitchen. So when I tell you that they discovered bottles
what?
With the label?
No shit.
We're going to drink that on the live, right?
I lost my ears.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Bottles with the label?
Oh, I could cry. Oh my God.
This is one of like 600 bottles.
Oh my God.
The earliest or the newest is 1910, and it's a 1910 bottle of absinthe. In case you wanted to drink something to die.
I was gonna say that's gonna kill us, but
so
I'm here for
it. Wow.
This.
Oh my God. I want that in and around my mouth.
Burnett, peppermint, alcohol, extract.
Oh my God.
It is the Boston.
Why have you not shown me this before?
Because I just thought about it.
Cool.
So let's see here. Burnett's essence of peppermint.
That is alcohol porn.
Alcohol, 85%.
I've changed my mind. This is my kink.
All right.
An
approved treatment for indigestion and flatulency, and a valuable remedy for colic, cholera, morbus, and diarrhea.
It will kill anything that's in your system.
This essence of peppermint is stimulatingly gentle on the stomach, warming and soothing the whole system. Guaranteed under the Food and Drugs Act, June 30th, 1906, serial number 91.
Oh my God.
Prepared by Joseph Burnett Company, Boston, Massachusetts, USA.
Oh my God.
Directions for adult: 1 teaspoon into a wine glass of sweetened water. For a child under 12 years old, half a teaspoon.
A child under 12!
Half a teaspoon. Oh.
So.
That's why they call it the good old days.
Right? So, but here's the kicker, is that that's the label.
Yeah.
In the box.
Yeah.
The box is still intact in the other box. There's 3 more bottles.
That's the only one that's been opened, though, right?
This one has been opened. This is the only one that has a cork in it still. The others were open with just a fragment of a cork, and I kind of have them taped up with that wonderful metallized like ducting tape just to keep them closed, because the glass will not be affected when I have to use some sort of astringent to clean the tape off. But yeah, there were bottles upon bottles of brown liquid. We don't know what it is. Nobody's been willing to drink it.
Oh, send it my way.
I'll let the Wallines know. I'll let the Wallines
fuck around and find out. I will,
because they are. And what's interesting about this, and why I have it in my possession, is because I was asked to package them up, curation style. This is all Section 106 approved Smithsonian spec packing material. None of it's acidic. Amazing. All that. In fact, these have been in a box for 3 years in here. I completely forgot about it.
Yo.
I feel a little betrayed because we've talked about alcohol a fair amount, and this has never come up. I completely forgot. That's okay. I want to touch them though. I just
when you're here,
party at Archaeowolf's house.
I'm
not giving the address.
Right.
But the other one is, and this is
very nice.
This is one that got picked up, but it has no maker's mark on the bottom. It's applied finish.
Can you put it up to the glass or to the? Oh, there's a patina on it though. That's nice.
There is a patina, but it's also, if you can see, it's an applied finish.
Yes. So it's worn down right on that rim side.
So, but that's when you hold it up to the light, so when you look at a bottle in historic archaeology and it has what's called an applied finish, they actually blue glass this bottle. They blew this like you would blowing glass, and then they put a blob of molten glass on the end, put it into a tool, and spun it before it cooled. And they actually, when you hold it up to the light and look at it, there is within here, you can see the seam where it did not quite adhere all the way.
It's almost like there's bubbles on the inside.
There's bubbles on the inside. There's imperfections in the glass.
Beautiful.
One of the most interesting finds that I ever came across was actually at the town of Coloma. And we recovered about 7,000 pieces of glass from a can dump.
Wow.
Broken glass. There's not worth anything archaeologically specific, except it was one of those instances when it was, because I was tasked in the lab with recording all of the maker's marks. All right, cool. Well, I picked up a bottle base from a bottle about this size, and I held it up to the light to get the maker's mark off it. And there were multiple sets of numbers that were fainter and fainter. And it's like, why was this stamped with multiple things? Well, back then, what's the most expensive part of a drink?
The bottle.
Bottle. So these bottles that we were finding these ghost markings on had actually been recycled.
Oh, that's neat.
And this is a situation where this bottle of whiskey or wine or beer would have been consumed. Say it was consumed at a silver town in Nevada. It was then put in a box, put on a wagon, sent back to the train. The train sent it back to Milwaukee, where it was probably sold at auction as a recycled bottle, and another brewer got it. They superheated the base, restamped it, refilled it, sent it back out. Some of these bottles had been recycled 5 times.
So there's these different layers.
So there's these different little labels, and some of them are it's almost it's really hard to see them. You don't get what the numbers are.
No,
but you can tell that they're there.
Enough to know that it's there.
But here's the thing. We were able to, before the invention of the car and the gasoline combustion engine,
we were able
to recycle bottles and glass. Why in the Sam hell are we unable to do it today?
So
that's awesome.
I saw a comment earlier. What do you think that's worth? There it is.
That's it. So I'm gonna straight up tell. Okay, so Daniel.
No, nothing.
We don't give prices on artifacts because you don't sell artifacts.
This belongs to a private owner. I have not been requested to give it back. They will get it back as soon as they ask me, and I remember it when I'm standing in front of them. Because it's a 50-mile drive one way to see them, and I keep forgetting. The problem with pricing these things is that it creates a market for things that it's illegal to recover them. The ones that are recovered currently that you could buy at a pawn shop, they've already been looted from an archaeological site, or they've been purchased from an estate, or they've been found in an old building on private property already. They never had a chance to enter the archaeological record. This bottle comes from an archaeological site, even though the archaeological part of that archaeological site is privately owned. This bottle that the brown glass bottle, I don't know where the hell it's from. I know its age. Provenience. There it is. Provenience. That's just a plain glass bottle. It's worth nothing. It's worth the 32-cent bullet round I could put through it if I wanted to. It doesn't have. I'm not going to. No, I'm not going to go. I'm not that crazy. There's the value goes based on what people are willing to pay. I have no point of reference for a price on a bottle like that.
It sounds like you're saying that objectively it is worth way more than it goes for subjectively. Does that make sense?
That's a fair statement. Yeah. So the point is leave it be, let an archaeologist know where it's at, and let the archaeologist find it on their own so they can know that the provenience has been undisturbed.
Yep. And that's, I mean,
the
that's
nice thing about phones
thing.
is you can put a GPS location on a picture, and then you can hold on to that picture and then swipe up on most iPhones, and it will tell you that GPS location. And then you can tell an archaeologist or a person from the Land Bureau or Army Corps of Engineers where you found it. Send them those exact coordinates, and then they will send someone like us, sorry, not him, us, out there on a survey if they deem it to be a necessary investment to check out.
You know, one of the ironic things about Hobby Lobby buying stuff that they found it was fake. It was faked because nobody checked the provenance. None of that data was there to prove that it wasn't a fake until they get it in their hands and they have an art expert or an actual crooked archaeologist go, this isn't real. This is a material type is not right. Or it's too clean. Or, you know, these ridiculous little things like, you know, a knife is a knife, right? Captain Dadpool makes knives. The companies in China make knives. The ancient Romans made knives. I can't sell you that this knife is a Roman knife because it's too clean. It doesn't match the style, et cetera, et cetera. But it's still a knife, right? That's kind of the problem where you have the provenance of artifacts and stuff being faked or stuff being, you know, someone tries to sell you Elvis Presley's pink Cadillac. Well, how do you know it's Elvis Presley's pink Cadillac? You know.
Stop trying to stab me. So you keep poking the knife right at my head.
You mentioned my knives. I had to bring them up.
Yes,
I'm very proud of my knife.
I don't have the kniffs with me, but I have my stupid kniff, the dumb one.
I don't know if I'm losing my shit on provenance. I'm just getting exacerbated by people who keep lecturing me on a word that I'm intimately familiar with.
Well, so here's the thing: is t-shirts and merch are coming eventually. Yes. That's all I can say. But there will be a shirt that's called Provenance.
It says Provenance.
Where it's at.
Where it's at.
Definitely merited.
Yeah. So there's a list. Things are happening.
Things are happening.
All right. So we're well beyond our 2-hour mark. But it's been great. This has been a really fun conversation. And the people in the comments or who are watching the show, most importantly, seem to really be enjoying. Go away, Taz.
Cat stuff.
That's not the cat that I had a conversation with earlier. The other one was like white.
It might be. Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that's him.
That's him? Okay.
He's white and
he
gray.
was literally staring at the camera for like 5 minutes, and like we had a nice chat prior to coming on here.
We call him Captain Boundary Issues.
Ah, that makes sense.
He has no respect for personal space. Anyway,
what cat
so yeah.
What? Sorry,
Dan McCarthy. I do know what people would pay for that bottle.
Yeah, we're just not going to.
I wouldn't put a price on it though.
And Gail, are you serious again?
What?
I've now determined that geology is fake news. I'm having issues with you.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's fake. It's all fake.
Trolls gonna troll.
Thanks for telling me that my profession is worthless.
Here's the thing, though, is that at some point I'm going to have to admit that archaeology was my old job. I still work for the government, though. see, this is the part where I'm going to have to admit at some point that the other woman in my life is the Renown, which is an interstellar battlecruiser that I've been using to fight the Wraith.
That is so true. And
Task Force 11.
I was going to say I'm one of the home base callings. Sorry.
All chevrons all the time.
All right, so
here's your nerd moment.
Yay! Like we didn't have any others.
Yeah, right. But no, this has been a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this.
Okay,
it was fun.
Good. I'm glad you did. Archaeowolf, where can everyone find you? What you got going on with your life?
So it's Archaeowolf at TikTok or TikTok at Archaeowolf, Archaeowolf on Instagram. And then I have a page on YouTube, which has one video because I'm really good at procrastinating and not actually putting anything there. that you can follow me, that at some point there will be more stuff, which is Whiskey with a Wolf. Because I had an idea I was going to do whiskey tastings too, and that didn't work out.
Oh, Whiskey with a Wolf. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. I was like, I had a couple of bottles when I was making this up, and I was like, you know what? I could do whiskey tastings, get whiskey sponsorships. And then I drank the whiskey and forgot what I was doing. So, and then went to bed.
Weird how alcohol does that.
So,
as you do.
So yeah.
You need to buy a book from me? I don't have any books.
If you go on my TikTok and follow my link page on there, everything is there to follow me on YouTube and Instagram.
I was on there earlier today. Yeah, Archaeowolf has a bunch of he has a bunch of links to his sources that he uses. And things like that.
I actually collect citations and sources for some of the stuff I do. Good
stuff. So if you want to dive deep into all that, definitely
see how I write, which is rambling just as like I talk.
Yeah. Nat, how about you? What you got going on?
I'm on TikTok and I'm on here when Dadpool wants me here because I come at his beck and call apparently. I'm in the field a lot, so I don't really have a big online presence, and yet I'm kind of the guy behind. I'm the guy in the chair behind a lot of TikTokers that like to ask questions. I'm the guy in the chair.
Pay no attention to the person behind the curtain.
Ging, that's me. So, yeah. But yeah, and right now I'm about to do a big road trip.
Yes.
So that'll be exciting. I get to see Archaeowolf later this week. I think. Yep. Yeah. I get to see you in 5 or 6 days. That's exciting.
Yeah, that'll be pretty good.
And then someday
hopefully I'm walking by then.
Yeah.
Because I also sprained my ankle.
Oh my God. Oh no.
Yeah.
But yeah, someday I'll do a road trip on the East Coast, and then I'll come and see Dadpool. But for now, we're gonna go spelunking somewhere. That's what's gonna happen.
To be all big
here,
TikTok famous people. Aren't we supposed to have some sort of shindig in Vegas, all of us, or something like that? Isn't that what famous TikTok people do?
I don't even know.
It's a cave.
I don't even know.
Bro, really? Anyway.
I'm not TikTok famous though. I just have I have 3,000 followers, but they're very, very loyal followers.
You have enough to go live though, which is good.
This is true.
So those who are watching now are privy to some classified information. I've asked NattieGnat to be a somewhat semi-permanent co-host. Crimson Barrel is in the midst of a big move. And he hasn't been available lately, and I don't know when he will be available consistently in the future. So after NattieGnat goes back from her field trip, I've asked her if she would be his replacement, essentially until he gets back into a rhythm.
I'm just here when you need me.
So Gail, I wish I had Gail's enthusiasm about how much I make.
Oh my God! Right? That comment though. Yeah,
that would be nice.
Gail, we are.
I'm making millions.
Not at all.
I'm making millions, and I drive a 24-year-old Toyota.
Yeah, archaeologist.
I have the original Prius. That's
archaeology. That's where the money is at. Definitely.
I won't be driving that on the road trip, but I do. Right. I have an original Prius. It is. The paint is chipping, and all that fun stuff. It's back when the hybrid wasn't labeled on the car. It just is.
What's paint?
A Prius. What's paint?
What's paint?
Yeah. What's
millions
paint?
Of what? Proud liberal.
I've heard of primer.
Apparently, Parcheesi tokens or something. I have no idea.
I don't know. We do find millions of flakes. We
just don't all the flakes.
Oh my God!
Yeah, we don't keep stuff like flakes.
No.
Bits of glass, bits of can.
I can say that I keep my flakes, but that's because I flint knap kind of recreationally. But I never I have a bag of flakes that I have never deposited anywhere because for obvious reasons it would create a site.
I feel like this is a inside conversation that
kind of not really. Hold on.
Average person wouldn't know what's going on here.
That pimped out Galaxy screams big money. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
License plates on it.
It's not even pimped out. It's not there yet. So,
you don't know?
Oh, he doesn't know about Mad Max.
Maxine, you don't know about Maxine.
Oof.
Your daughter.
No, my daughter's name is Juniper.
Juniper,
my
that's
daughter's
right.
name is Juniper.
It is a child, though.
I have a 1970 Galaxy 500 sports roof coupe.
Which is the Mad Max car.
You just gave Rachel a lady boner, just so you know.
Well,
no.
I do what I can.
I have a question. Does that mean I get to go for a ride in Maxine? Is she up and running a little bit?
Well, it's running. It's the license plates that it doesn't have. That
can we break the law just a little bit when
maybe around the block? Maybe around the block. Yeah, maybe.
No. So recreational flint knapping. What I was talking about is this is the first arrowhead I ever made. It looks more like a drill point. It was awful.
You made that.
And this is one that I have made recently.
Wow.
So.
Well, you're
wow.
Yeah. So
that's
just a
epic.
This is from college, learning how to do it, and this is how thin I can get them now. But I also had much better chert in this one than I did in this one.
So your material type,
the material type,
making stone
tools, was a big,
really
big
important.
Difference.
You want to see my first knife versus my most recent knife?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is my first knife.
Oh, you made it out of a ratchet.
Made
I
out
love
of
it.
a wrench, obviously. Okay. And then it's not my most recent, but this is.
That's your pride and joy, though.
Nice.
My
how's the balance? Can you stick it? Can you one finger balance it?
Kinda. Yeah.
Close. Now, once the balance is on point, then you've made a good one. Oh my God! Bravo! Wow! Nice. Wow!
So yeah. Now I want to get the sword and see how well it's balanced for science reasons.
I haven't made a sword yet. That's a whole different animal.
Oh, Archaeowolf has a really cool sword, one that he uses in the field, right? Are you talking about that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hold.
More show and tell. I'm here for it. This is the after
meanwhile,
show
I'll show the dumbass machete. That's
super far away it was.
Say, this is the dumb thing that my father got for me last year. It was supposed to just be a machete, but as you can see, it's a two-handed grip. It is a machete, but it also has a cleaver on the end of it.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are interested, this is what it looks like.
This is a machete and also a barbecue spatula.
Yeah, I actually do want to grill with it at some point because I feel like I could flip patties pretty well.
That's like a like Bear Grylls sponsors that.
Oh yeah,
doesn't he?
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, show us the pretty.
All right, what you got?
Yeah.
Oh, what is that?
So this is called a Hellion.
Yeah.
And it is modeled after a falcata, which is an ancient sword from Iberia, modern-day Spain. It is shaped similar to a kukri. It is one of those wonderful farm in the winter and fight in the summer kind of things, or fight in the winter and farm in the summer. And it is made by an outfit local to Missoula here called Zombie Tools.
Oh.
So Dadpool, you know how you said you wanted to build me, or you wanted to forge a trowel for me?
A trowel,
I'd rather you make me one of those. I really want one of those.
A machete or a kukri type?
A kukri. If you could make me a kukri.
Zombie Tools makes a kukri they call the Vakra.
That sounds epic.
I could do something like that.
Look at their website. I mean, I don't say don't copy them, obviously, but try some of their. They have some really neat stuff, really neat stuff.
I could do something like that.
Easy. But they're a local outfit here. They made the what is it? Kydex, however you pronounce it.
Oh, that's nice.
Kydex,
yeah. That's nice.
So you can stitch it however you want to your pack.
Sweet.
So
I also make my own. I also make the Kydex.
So
nice.
I don't know about you, Morgan, but I personally like it when my kniffs are horizontal on the back of my belt rather than having them sit on the side, because you hop in and out of the truck so often and it just pokes the shit out of your ribs and I end up with bruises on my hips. So
I carry a knife called an epic. I don't know if anybody's seen that or if I've shown that. This is the field knife I usually carry. Where's my pack?
I don't know.
For Christ's sake.
My pack's right there, but I already unloaded my knives because I'm going camping. So they're somewhere else.
I don't want to get up again.
Do it. I want to see what you're talking about.
Let's see the epic.
Oh, that wasn't even getting up.
Okay.
That wasn't even getting up.
You were going for like a second. Like, what are you fretting about?
It's called laziness. We walk so much in the field, we don't want to do anything when we get home. Yeah.
The kid's little knife.
Oh, it's like a 3-finger
yeah.
EDC. Okay.
So this is going to be the most serial killer thing I've ever said to anybody. This is the best knife for cracking rib cages. This will go through the sternum of a white-tailed deer in about 4 seconds.
So it's also your hunting knife, or your field dressing knife, I should say.
Yeah, that's why I bought 2 of them.
Well,
So
I mean,
but the sheath is shit. I hate.
Oh no,
sheath.
it has a little metal clip. I hate those.
Well, it's not the metal clip; it's the fact that
does it just
this
slip out?
plastic, you get about 4 in and outs of the blade before this stupid little latch, which is just a piece of plastic with a groove in it, fails. So I have to make some sheaths for them because I've got 1 in this pack, 1 in my truck, and they don't make that knife anymore.
Aw.
I actually had to buy 1 off of eBay and 1 from a cop supply store in Minneapolis, of all places, because they don't make them anymore. Gerber does not carry them. And when I actually reached out to try to find out whether or not they carry them, well, I sent them that email in December. Still haven't gotten word. So
None of us are live streaming right now, right?
I am on TikTok, but it's still up.
Oh wow! Because the comments are
Just
like, I
gotta
wonder
throw
how
this out
the
there.
TikTok live stream was just removed.
If you want to send me that knife, I will make you a good sheath for it.
Well,
that's a trick because then he has your knife.
I'll sharpen the knife.
I will tell you what. I will trade you. I will give you one of those if you have one of your knives that you can part with that you're displeased with, but is still a sharp, usable knife. I don't have to have a pretty knife.
It just needs to be functional.
It needs to
Something
be functional.
That's good and functional.
I better be able to kill a bear with it. Oh wait,
that's functional.
I'm gonna say, nah.
Yeah.
I
haven't stuck a bear with a knife
and a sheath to go with it. It might take some time.
Well, we'll talk. I would rather buy a knife from you.
Yeah, same.
I want
to support you.
I'll give you the friends and family discount.
All right. I'm okay with discounts, but I want to pay you for your skill.
Absolutely.
I'll
give
you the discount. Yeah.
I will say I really like bone handles, but that's just me.
See, now
bone handle is something I've not experimented with yet, but I want to. I just haven't had an excuse to do it yet.
So I live in the land of sheds.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
So yes. I can find antlers if you want to antler up some knife.
If you send me
if
something,
you find some antlers, just collect
of
them. I'll take them home, and I can actually ship them to him. It might be closer.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can also
be great,
make more.
I wouldn't even have to buy the material, so it'd be even cheaper for you. Yeah.
If you find some really good elk sheds, I could use another hammer.
Ram horn
for flint knapping, because I may or may not have my dog may or may not have gotten a hold of
ram horn is difficult to get here.
Well, but I don't always use ram horn.
That was just a random example.
Oh. Yeah. Here you can't actually keep bighorn horns.
Well, yeah, they're endangered, right? So
no, you can hunt them.
Oh,
you can get a license to hunt bighorn sheep here. You can't keep their horns. If you hit one on the highway, if you find a dead one, you cannot keep their horns. And that is because there are people willing to pay $1,200 or more for a curl and a half or more bighorn horns. And people will, some of the rams that are on Highway 200, holy shit, 3 full curls. And the only reason they're alive is they live in somebody's backyard. They're fat on Miracle-Gro and petunias.
They're fat on Miracle-Gro.
But
right.
But these full curl rams are worth so much money that if you find a dead one or if you hit one on the highway, you are not able to keep it. Now, if you hit a deer on the highway, they just passed the legislation a couple years ago that you can buy a salvage tag from the highway patrolman.
Cut the head off and take it.
No, you can take the whole animal.
Oh, okay.
And
in Iowa, a lot of times you'll see a headless deer because if they have a rack, they'll just cut the head off and drive away with it.
That's frowned upon here, but it's not illegal. But there are people that will purposely hit them.
Yeah. No, I would believe that.
And if you can pull down a 3 curl bighorn ram for the cost of a front clip on an 85 Chevrolet pickup,
right?
You're going to be walking out of that particular deal with $3,700.
Congrats! You just
after you fix the truck, So it's they made the Fish and Game made it prohibited to pick up the horns of dead bighorns, which is what it is. I do, however, have some Highland cattle horn.
Highland cows are so cute.
Yeah, there's a whole freezer full of it in the garage.
I know, they're delicious. Cute. They're also super cute. The largest Scottish Highland cattle farm in the U.S. is about 20 miles north of where I am.
Oh, McMoose.
It's all the McMoose.
All the McMoose.
All the McMoose.
Gail, I went to the University of Montana for my undergrad, and I'm going to Adams State to finish up my master's in Colorado.
What is your ultimate goal? Do you want to get a doctorate and all that?
I guess the point would be to get my doctorate, because at some point, and everybody tells me this, 300,000 people on TikTok seem to think I am good at it, is I should teach.
That's his retirement plan, though.
That's my retirement plan.
You'll be good at that.
Knowing what's going to happen is I'm going to start a bunch of projects in my head and start a bunch of writing stuff, and then I'm going to just submit my PhD from some writing project I did a couple years ago.
I believe that.
That's what they usually like. A lot of people or PhD recipients, they turn their dissertation into a book that they publish.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much what, if I ever go back and finish my master's, that's what I can do with my initial senior thesis is just go back to what I wrote, reevaluate it. There's still more data being pulled from the site that I can always add in, do statistical analysis on it, and throw that into my master's project. So,
honestly, that's what I'm doing for my MA.
I know it's just continuing on the project.
I threw away my master's thesis a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and I started over. And what I did was I took the 200-page paper I wrote during my undergrad, and I'm turning it into my thesis, just by adding some stuff in there to make it work. So, yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, like in your undergrad, you do a thesis, which is like
sometimes you have the option to. You don't have to. You can
either do like a voluntary work in your field, or you can write a thesis. Like in my case, I wrote a thesis and it was like 30 pages long. And then you go on to your graduate, you get your master's, and then you have to write an 80-page paper.
80?
80.
This is only 80?
80 to 130. 80 to 130-ish.
It depends on the school. It depends on the school and the program on how long a thesis is.
My program I have to hit almost 200 pages.
Yeah, my program never gave me a page limit.
Really?
I asked.
And they were just
flat
like,
out said,
make
how many pages, how many chapters? Talk to me like I am in middle school, please. Nobody ever gave me an answer.
Great.
So it's going to be 9 chapters, and it's going to be about 200 or 160 pages.
Then say you're to get your master's degree, you complete a 130 page paper. And then when you go on to get your PhD, you have to make a 300 page paper, basically a book on the topic. So usually what happens is you take what you started with your undergraduate degree, that 30 page paper, and you just keep building upon it. And that's what you submit as your PhD thesis. And a lot of times you go on to publish as a book.
Which then turns, it goes like the master's, which gets a little more elaborate, and then the PhD, which goes way, like it just extrapolates the data to an extent that you would not have time for in a master's. So,
pretty much.
Yeah, which my PhD, or my PhD, goddamn.
I was like, when did you get a PhD?
Hey, you know what?
I barely started. I had one semester of my master's, and I stopped right after that. But my undergraduate was the Human Genome Project, and how the human genome is evidence for the existence of God, because I was still a Christian at the time.
Sorry, I shouldn't have laughed at that. That's funny, but I shouldn't have laughed at it.
And like I read
no, I'm still
all
laughing.
the language of God, and how the human genome, because the director of the Human Genome Project became a Christian, or he went from an atheist to a deist because of the Human Genome Project, and he knows more about the human genome than anybody else on the planet. And he was like, "This is the language of God. Like, there's no way." So I took that to be like, this is the best evidence of God we have. And I wrote a very long paper on it. But I couldn't imagine turning that into a book.
Wow.
Because obviously I don't believe in any of it anymore. But that's beside the point.
I wrote a paper comparing the technological similarities between the wing spars of World War I biplane fighter planes to Clovis, Goshen, and Folsom points in respect to complexity and production.
That's cool.
And then I reread it and was like,
I've gone back and I reread mine and was just like, I'm never publishing this. Nope, I gotta rewrite the crap out of this.
Yeah,
if I ever do anything. But mine was I did a little bit of experimental archaeology in it because I learned how to flint knap, which I thought was cool as shit when I found those Clovis points. I was just like, oh, this is neat. Went into the archives at the Iowa, the University of Iowa State Archaeologist Department, which the state archaeologist was, oddly enough, my professor. So that helped a lot because I literally had unlimited access to the archives. So I could go in there. I hunted down a bunch of stuff. He had a hunch as to where that site was or what that site was. Turns out it was from 1968. The journals were indecipherable. It sucked. There were some pictures also, didn't help. And so we tried to we did a drone footage over the top of it and tried to get some get narrowed down images of it. There's about 8 full points that got pulled out of that site. There's a few that are on corresponding ridges that we think are actually kind of a trade route. But then I did the comparisons of the materials, their location, their origins, and then the trade route between various Clovis sites throughout Iowa and Nebraska, and found out that there was a consistent repetitive process where they would come back to certain locations back and forth during the Ice Age. So that's where that went. But I did a big presentation about it, and I was one of the first people to 3D print the points because I couldn't. Yeah, right? Crazy.
So
back when that was a thing.
You can get, for people who want these points and stuff, you can actually get recreations of these points that are pulled from all the dimensions, the actual laser scanned points. And I can't remember the website for ordering them, but it's essentially teaching collection stuff. So you can, but yeah, then or Nat can laser scan them for you or laser print them.
I was gonna say, well, when I tried to do it, there was no really good programs about it. I had to try 5 or 6 different programs on how to recreate them. But I called the Natural Science and History Museum in Houston, and they tried to 3D print via my specifications. They took pictures of a few of their Clovis points and sent me the information, and I printed them out, and they looked kind of messy and everything. Everyone thought I was kind of an idiot for trying to do this because they were like, well, why don't you just go down and look at the points? I'm like, because I want the availability to be out there. Like, I want to be able to like say, hey, here's a Clovis point from such and such site. Take that to one that's in this library and compare it. And just I thought that was smart. And at the time, no one else did. So
there you go. I actually found my old project.
Awesome. Broken wings. Aw. Yep. I did not.
There it is.
Broken wings.
Like iterations in the class. That's funny. Okay.
This is actually about 60 miles from my house.
That's cool.
Someone asked to see your aviation or your plane collection there.
There they be.
There they be. What do you want to hear?
So, yeah, I have a thing for old airplanes. I'm just a big kid, So,
sorry guys.
P-51D, P-51B, P-40BC model, and then a Spitfire Mark I. I'm having a really hard time pointing. No, I did not build them. They came in a box that way. I have built model airplanes all my life. I took the lazy way out because these are so much nicer than what I was able to do because I can't paint. And another P-40, a really small P-40, and a P-47 because I have a thing for the P-40. And then that little plastic plane up there is actually a plastic B-25 toy from the 1960s. And I can't remember where I came across that, but it has wound up in my collection. And I've got a whole box over there of stuff that isn't hanging up, mostly because, I have a 6-year-old and she would like to play with these things. And the couple of airplanes that I did let her play with have since crashed epically. So,
hell yeah.
So I want to keep talking about this. Can we move this to a after show party on Discord? Is that okay? I don't know if you want to keep streaming or if you want to.
No, yeah, we can do that. I recall almost an hour ago I tried to close out the show.
I'm so did. Sorry.
Yeah, we tried. Not very hard.
I didn't try very hard, but that's because everyone seemed to be having a good time. So why end it when everyone?
I think there's a lot of people that want to talk face to face with us.
Yeah,
it sounds like there's a lot of questions popping up that seem to be very one-on-one type questions, so
we'll wrap things up, and then we'll jump into a Discord. I'll figure out how to post that so everyone.
Give me a second. I can do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I can get it done. Yeah, because I'm cool like that.
This is why she's your new co-host. She knows all the things.
Yeah.
I don't know all the things. Don't tell him lies.
I just don't know the best way to do it. Like I know how to do it, but
and I'm posting it on here.
Everybody to. But my Discord will be a public chat that's open to everybody. If you can find the link to my Discord, it's in my Beacons link tree thing in my bio on my TikTok. Go in there, and you can come hang out with us.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
It is also now on the chat.
It's in the chat now.
It should say it. It's http://discord.gg/5EUGUUXPK.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway.
YouTube doesn't.
I'm gonna need to find that.
And I'll send it one more time, see if it goes through.
YouTube
doesn't want to post links in chat.
Yes, Discord.
Let us post
the Discord.
The Discord.
But my
if not, then Rachel can figure out the thing. Maybe.
YouTube doesn't let you post links in the chat.
What? No.
They're just like TikTok will let you post it, but you can't like click it and go there. YouTube doesn't let you post any links in the chat.
What? Rude. Okay. So those of you who are on Discord or know what Discord is, Dadpool has a lovely thing that's called Dadpool's Digs. You can search that, and then we will see you in the discussion room.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to find a link to post.
It doesn't matter. You can't post it in the chat.
But it's here. I can put up the concept of just type in Dadpool's Digs the way it's spelled on here, and people can Google it.
Apostrophe S space digs. Like how you would actually write
Good,
it.
because I was like, oh hey, I'm going to type it all together.
Yeah, there's no like weird way with like an underscore or.
Nope.
It's just how you normally write it. Yeah, so we're gonna end things here. Hope you guys can join us. Who can?
I got you, I got you, Morgan. I just sent you an invite, so it's in Discord. You can just hit the link and it'll go straight to it.
Join.
Yep.
Hey,
there you are.
Yeah, Dadpool S space digs. Yeah.
All
right. So yeah, I'm gonna close things out. Hope to see you guys there. Thanks.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this, and I look forward to continuing our conversation in the after party for anyone who wants to join us.
Sounds good.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.